What? A recluse in this middle of nowhere place? Well, that's just like you, the introvert who spent all his time gaming. I was debating whether to go to my high school reunion. On my way to the venue, I immediately regretted deciding to attend. Because I happened to run into my least favorite classmate from high school. But then, it happened. What the? My classmate stood there, staring blankly at one point. And at the end of his gaze, there was an incredibly beautiful woman standing. "Long time no see," the woman said, her cheeks slightly flushed, as she peered into my face. "If you don't come, I'll keep waiting." How could I not go after receiving a message like that? Reluctantly, I put on one of the newer jackets from my closet. And then, well, the rest can be whatever. I put on my worn-out sneakers at the entrance and opened the door. A frank feeling escaped my lips. Oh man. I really don't want to go to a reunion. My name is Leslie, and I'm 25 years old. Today, I was going to head to my high school reunion. It's the first reunion since graduation. And the group chat organized by the host is full of upbeat messages like "I can't wait, I really want to see everyone, I'll definitely be there," with nearly everyone in the class planning to attend. And then there's me. I barely managed to send a "I'll be there" just before the RSVP deadline. Why? Because I really don't want to go to the reunion. I'm not feeling great. Maybe I should take some antacid before going. I didn't have any memories from high school that made me want to see my old classmates. What I remember is sitting quietly in the corner of the classroom. I wasn't particularly skilled at anything, nor did I stand out in any way, and on top of that, I was terrible at socializing. So inevitably, I spent a dark 3 years in high school. I was, you might say, an introvert. Who would even be happy to see me there? Does anyone even remember me? On my way to the nearest station, I couldn't stop thinking these negative thoughts. If it weren't for that message, I probably wouldn't have even replied to the group chat. I'm dragging my feet toward the venue, all because of Alicia. My childhood friend asked me, "I really want you to come to the reunion," so I had no choice. When she said she'd be waiting for me, I couldn't refuse to attend. But the first time I hear from Alicia in 3 years is about this reunion. What's up with her? Alicia, my childhood friend, has been with me since preschool. She had a chubby figure, pale skin from being indoors all the time, and always spoke in a low voice. Because of these traits, she was called some not-so-nice nicknames in class. Back then, she was my fellow introvert. And she was practically my only friend. Yeah, I should bring that if I'm going to see her. I turned on my heel and headed back toward the apartment I came from. Strangely, my steps felt lighter than they had been. However, just as I was about to cross the street to the hotel where the venue was. Well, if it isn't Leslie the introvert. Did you say you were coming? My face froze at that moment. Oh no. Of all the classmates to run into first, it had to be the one I least wanted to see. Maybe it really would have been better not to come to this reunion. Ignoring my regret, that guy walked over with a grin on his face. It's been ages. How have you been, champ? Hey, about that nickname. Never mind. He looked up at me, peering into my face, and I mumbled awkwardly as I looked down. I thought I had gained some courage after facing the harsh realities of the world. But the moment we made eye contact, all the confidence I had built up deflated like a balloon with a hole. Why do the power dynamics from school days have such a hold on people? You're still the same as ever. Unremarkable, kind of dorky, not very polished. You haven't changed a bit, champ. It's reassuring, really. The guy laughing and patting me on the shoulder. Kenneth, my former classmate, was always someone who lacked any sense of delicacy and spoke whatever was on his mind. Leslie? Ha, sounds like a girl's name. I still remember him laughing at me when we were first in the same class. He naturally thought it was okay to make introverts the butt of jokes. Honestly, he was just a jerk. But people like him, for some reason, excelled academically and athletically, and on top of that, had good looks. And naturally, they were at the center of the class. We were on completely opposite ends of the class hierarchy, him at the top and me at the bottom. Kenneth, you. What? What about me? Are you about to say I'm still as handsome as ever? Well, I hate to admit it, but he was right. He looked even more ruggedly handsome than before. Maybe he's been playing sports, judging by his tan skin and muscular build. On top of that, he was wearing a suit that screamed expensive and a watch that seemed like a high-end brand. Hey, do you know about Blossom Advertising? I'm working as a sales rep there now, Kenneth said, draping his arm around my shoulder with a smug look on his face. Blossom Advertising is one of the top 5 advertising agencies in the industry. It makes sense that he seems to be doing well financially, considering he's likely making a lot of money. So, what about you? You used to always be playing games in class. You're not still gaming all day, are you? Wait, are you serious? Seeing my reaction, Kenneth's smile twitched for a moment. Then, in the next instant, he burst into laughter, clutching his stomach. Seriously? So you're a recluse or something, still living at your folks' place in this boonish town? No, that's not. Sure, the town we're from is a rural place that's far from lively. As I tried to refute him, Kenneth wouldn't let me get a word in. Come on, it's fine. Life has its ups and downs, right? We're only 25, we can always start fresh. Let's do our best. He nodded to himself, patting my shoulder as if to encourage me. All the while, Kenneth continued to ramble on with a smug grin. That's right. This was another thing I couldn't stand about him. I gazed off into the distance. At that moment, Kenneth suddenly muttered as if he had remembered something. By the way, I was surprised to see her on the guest list. Her? That's her. The one who was close to you, that pig with glasses, Alicia. What? At that moment, I felt like my head was about to explode. The emotions that surged up were so intense that I unconsciously grabbed Kenneth's shoulder. Hey! I don't care what he says about me. But to insult my childhood friend who isn't even here. I couldn't believe how angry I felt. But even though I had grabbed Kenneth's shoulder, he was looking in another direction and hadn't noticed me at all. What is that? He mumbled like he was in a trance and stood frozen in place. Wondering what it was, my anger subsiding a bit, followed his gaze. And then, what the? Across the crosswalk, standing against the backdrop of a building, was a woman. Her appearance held me captive just like it did Kenneth. Even from a distance, I could see her translucent, porcelain skin. Her glossy black hair, softly curled, gently framed her small face. Under her bangs were large, jewel-like eyes and a well-shaped, beautiful nose. Her light pink lips stood out strikingly against her white skin. From the cream-colored dress she wore, slender arms and legs extended gracefully. A doll? Don't be stupid. She's a real person, and incredibly beautiful. Kenneth, excited, shook my shoulder vigorously. Despite being shaken, I couldn't take my eyes off her. Off the stunning beauty who was impossibly close. I'm going over there. What? I'm gonna ask her out. And if things go well, I might just skip the reunion. No sooner had he said this than Kenneth dashed across the crosswalk. And then, I fell in love at first sight. Would you do me the honor of having dinner with me? As if proposing, he knelt on one knee and extended his hand to the beauty. Even such an exaggerated scene looked fitting between a handsome man and a beautiful woman. For someone like me, it could never. Leslie. Yeah. Hey, you're Leslie, right? That's right, wait, what? I was looking down, but the moment I raised my head, I felt like my eyes were going to pop out. Because the beautiful woman who was supposed to be across the intersection was now so close she could almost touch me. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Sorry I'm late. What? The overwhelming beauty I'd seen from afar was right in front of me. A sweet, fresh scent, perhaps from her perfume or shampoo, wafted around her. Beautiful women really do smell nice. I thought absently, as if in a dream. Hey, are you mad? Because I was late for our meeting? I'm not mad. You probably just got lost or something. How did you know? Yeah, Alicia, you have always been, Alicia? At that moment, the sounds around me suddenly became clear. The beautiful woman smiled, her grin blooming like a flower. Long time no see, she said, twirling the ends of her hair with her long, slender fingers. That nervous habit of hers was, "Alicia, it's really you, isn't it? I didn't recognize you at first. Leslie, you've become really handsome. You're the one who's changed." Honestly, I was still in disbelief. She looked like a completely different person. The woman standing in front of me and the image of Alicia, my childhood friend, in my memory. Everyone used to call me a pig with glasses. She was always pale and chubby since childhood. On top of that, she wore thick glasses and was often teased at school. I remember how she often cried on our way home. Her timid and shy personality was probably part of the reason for it. She had a round face, chubby arms and legs, small eyes, and a flat nose. She had long hair she used to hide her face and wore baggy uniforms to cover her figure. That was the lost timid I saw of Alicia at our high school graduation. Is it really you, Alicia? It's a little embarrassing to hear my name so much. In a daze, I stared at Alicia, who smiled shyly back at me. Just then, Kenneth hurriedly ran over, looking flustered. Hey, hey, hey! You know her, Leslie. No wonder Kenneth didn't realize she was Alicia. If he recognized her as the pig with glasses he used to mock, what kind of face would he make? A mischievous thought crossed my mind, and I decided to play dumb. Don't you remember? She was a classmate too. A classmate. So she's coming to the reunion today as well. Yeah, she said she's attending. You're kidding me. Kenneth clutched his head, twisting in agony. He was probably trying hard to recall her. But finally, he shouted, "I give up. I'm sorry, I can't remember. How could I forget such a beautiful woman? I'm such an idiot. But meeting you here must be fate. Would you accompany me to the venue?" Kenneth knelt once again, offering his hand to Alicia. But she silently walked past him. What? Kenneth froze in his dramatic pose, completely ignored by Alicia. Then she smiled brightly and suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. Leslie, hurry up. The reunion's starting. Alicia, wait. As the light turned green, Alicia pulled me along, and we dashed across the crosswalk. I could hear Kenneth's voice murmuring Alicia, behind us. Leslie. Here's some water. Your face has been red for a while, have you had too much to drink? Oh, yeah. Thanks. I took the glass Alicia offered and gulped down the water. But it was like trying to put out a fire with a glass of water. This was nowhere near enough to calm me down. Every time Alicia entered my line of sight, my heart started racing. Wow, Alicia, you've really become beautiful. Huh? My heart skipped a beat at a classmate's nearby comment. For a moment, I thought I had accidentally let my true feelings slip. Alicia really has become beautiful. This isn't just about losing weight and getting slim. It's like she's changed so much on the outside that her inner self seems different, too. The timid Alicia from back then was gone, and she walked with her back straight, like a top model on a fashion runway. The confidence radiating from her wasn't something you could achieve just by dressing up. It enveloped her entire being like a glow. She seems so distant now. Did you say something, Leslie? Are you feeling unwell? The way she tilted her head and her kindness toward others were the same as always. While I'm still stuck in my introverted days, Alicia has transformed into a completely different person, drawing all eyes in the venue. Even though we're standing next to each other, it feels like we're living in different worlds now. Sorry. I need to go to the restroom. What? Are you okay? I'll go with you. I just drank too much water. Pathetically, I ran away. I watched from the corner of my eye as classmates gathered around Alicia, whispering about her. Still, I couldn't bear it. I'm just a kid. In the hallway, I reached into my jacket pocket and held onto something cold and hard. It was the handheld game console I had brought from home. It was a memento of the times Alicia and I used to play together at my house. Wow, nostalgic. You still have it, Leslie. I imagined Alicia saying that with sparkling eyes behind her glasses. But the current Alicia didn't seem interested in games at all. No, it wasn't Alicia, it was me who couldn't show this to her. It felt like I was the only one still stuck in the past, and I wished I could just disappear. Did you see her? Alicia's amazing, right? I couldn't even recognize her. 2 girls passed by me, chatting about her. Isn't it because of her family's money? You know she is. A full-body plastic surgery. Lucky her, I wish I was born a CEO's daughter, too. The amount of money she must have spent is different, I bet. No way. It started to feel strange that Alicia and I were ever together. Even though our families were neighbors, I was just the second son of an average salaryman's family. Meanwhile, Alicia's father was the CEO of a long-standing food manufacturer. In other words, Alicia was a CEO's daughter. Her father was really strict. He hated video games. Would Alicia, their only daughter, eventually take over the company as CEO? If that happens, we'll definitely be living in separate worlds. Maybe that's why she invited me here today. Maybe Alicia sensed that we couldn't go back to being the way we were. Perhaps she wanted to use this opportunity to cut ties with me. If that's the case, I don't like it. I still want to be friends with Alicia. That was my honest wish. At least, it was at this point. As the reunion reached its final stages, conversations about the after-party began to arise everywhere. Alicia, are you coming? Let's go to the after-party together. Let's talk more. Alicia was still surrounded by classmates, and I didn't even have a chance to approach her. I wondered if Alicia planned to go to the after-party. I wanted to know, but I couldn't even see her expression to find out. Then, it happened. I'd like to talk with you alone. A short message appeared on my phone, just that was enough. Before I even checked who sent it, my heart skipped a beat. Because I had been thinking the exact same thing. I'm sorry, everyone. I'd love to, but I think I'll head home tonight. Smiling, Alicia slipped out of the crowd. Even such a casual moment felt like a scene from a movie. Without a doubt, Alicia was the star of this reunion. I couldn't help but wonder if it was okay for someone like me to be alone with Alicia. Despite the slight feeling of guilt, my heart kept racing. I was happy. Out of everyone, Alicia chose me. Then, it happened. Under the venue lights, Alicia's large eyes sparkled as she turned towards me by the window. Our eyes met. Leslie. Alicia called my name with a bright, genuinely joyful smile. My face flushed, as if all the blood in my body rushed to it at once. She's beautiful. For the first time, I felt something new towards the girl waving at me. I was so taken aback that I couldn't even wave back. Seeing my lack of response, Alicia tilted her head in puzzlement. Then suddenly, someone barged in. Alicia. How about dinner after this? It was Kenneth, who had been dazed in the corner of the room, finally regaining his senses. I'm sorry. I have plans after this. Just 30 minutes, no, even 15 minutes. Please, give me a chance. A chance? Yes. Listen, Alicia, Kenneth launched into a passionate self-promotion. He graduated from a prestigious private college in New York and currently works for a well-known advertising company. He earns more than anyone else at this reunion and plans to buy a penthouse in New York someday. His suit and watch today were expensive brand name items. In other words, he considered himself a man worthy of an extraordinary beauty. We've reunited, so let's put the past behind us. I was just a kid back then, you know, part of the fun. But you've really become beautiful, Alicia. You're like a different person. Did you lose weight because you were upset about being teased? If so, maybe I deserve some credit for it. I was shocked you chose Leslie, an introverted shut-in gamer with no talents and no money. But hey, I'm generous. Of course. I'll forgive you if you'll have dinner with me. With a smug expression, Kenneth extended a hand to Alicia, confident he had sealed the deal. Then, Alicia, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke up. She had a puzzled expression on her face. Who are you? What? Kenneth froze at Alicia's response, stunned. The classmates around them, who had been watching the two, all let out a wow and burst into laughter. Then Kenneth's face turned red with anger, and he snapped back defiantly. It's me, Kenneth. Kenneth. We were in the same class for 3 years, and I was class president in our second year. Kenneth, oh, that Kenneth? That's right. Kenneth, angry that he had been forgotten, finally looked relieved when Alicia remembered him. However, In the next instant, he was frozen again by Alicia's words. Kenneth, who confessed to every girl in school and got in trouble with the teachers. What? Although Kenneth had been a popular class president. The reason he'd been left alone in the corner of the room tonight was because of these incidents. His reputation for womanizing and his shallow personality were infamous throughout the school even back then. 7 years after graduation, their classmates, now mature, were once again reminded of his bad behavior. No one wanted to get involved with him, so everyone kept their distance. That's right, it was terrible. He didn't care if someone had a boyfriend. And once he got bored, he'd drop them immediately. There must be a few victims among us here. The ones chuckling were those who weren't targets of Kenneth back in the day. In other words, the girls Kenneth used to mock for their appearance. Laughter spread from them, and someone even shouted, "Is he still up to it?" and the whole venue erupted in laughter. Amidst it all, Alicia was the only one who, for some reason, raised her voice in anger. Hold on. Kenneth, you're wrong. Leslie isn't a shut-in. What? Also, take back what you said about him having no talents. Leslie is an amazing person who has been recognized by many. With that, Alicia mentioned a game. It was a mobile phone RPG game that had become a massive hit both domestically and internationally. The fact that it was developed by a current college student became a huge topic at the time. Of course, I know it. I got really into it myself. I still play it. The person who created that game, Leslie, is Leslie right there. What? Not only Kenneth but all the other classmates wore looks of surprise. Leslie had never shown their face, and their gender was unknown, with only the fact that they were 25 years old this year being known to the public. After all, I hadn't even told my parents that I was working in game development until last year. Incidentally, I live in a condo in New York, and today I took the train from the morning to return to my hometown. I didn't have many fond memories of high school, and if Alicia hadn't invited me, I probably wouldn't have attended the reunion. No way. I mean, if it's true, I just assumed they were a woman. Kenneth's voice trailed off in disbelief as the murmurs in the venue grew louder. And suddenly, my classmates surged towards me. That's amazing, Leslie. I play that game too. You were always into games. Can I get your autograph? Classmates who hadn't even noticed my presence earlier were now crowding around me, praising me, and trying to talk to me. I was bewildered by the attention, feeling both awkward and embarrassed. My body automatically backed away to the wall to distance myself from them. Haha. Sorry, I have plans after this. At that moment, someone grabbed my hand from behind. Startled, I turned around to see Alicia standing there. Let's run, Leslie. What? With that, Alicia suddenly pulled me, and we started running. We dashed out of the venue, sped down the hallway, and quickly exited the hotel. Then, we finally stopped after crossing the crosswalk where we had reunited that evening. I felt like I was the lead in a movie. But I didn't have the time to think about that. Being out of shape from my work, such sudden exercise was too much for my body. Phew. Why aren't you out of breath at all, Alicia? Maybe because I've been going to the gym. I also heard swimming, jogging, and hiking are good exercises for weight loss. Oh. Alicia smiled at me, unable to speak, saying, "You really are amazing, Leslie." Lately, I've been too busy to play games, but I've heard about Leslie's activities. Every time a game I worked on became popular, I felt as happy as if it were my own. If anyone's amazing, it's you. Alicia is much more impressive than I am. Earlier, I was just surprised at how incredibly beautiful Alicia had become. To have changed so dramatically, she must have put in an immeasurable amount of effort into dieting and beauty. Now that I realized it, I understood why she was so dazzlingly beautiful. And my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was going to explode. You've become beautiful. Ha! I've wanted to tell you for a while, but I couldn't bring myself to say it, sorry. Leslie. Back in the day, I would have been able to compliment her more honestly. But facing the current Alicia, that was all I could manage to say. Her white skin turned a pale red, and she looked down shyly. She was incredibly cute. When she stood up for me against Kenneth, she had such a dignified and cool aura, and she was really beautiful. In my head, I could come up with endless words. So, just wondering, but do you have anyone you're dating right now? Even after asking, I didn't know why I did. But I felt like I had to ask. Even though I knew I'd probably regret asking. I'm getting married. What? I'm planning to have the wedding next year. Right now, we're in the middle of preparing. After graduating from junior college, Alicia worked as a secretary for her father while studying to be the next CEO. She met her fiancé through that connection. Alicia smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her expression for a bride-to-be. I'm glad I got to see you, Leslie. I really wanted to tell you this in person today. Oh, right. Marriage. Of course. Someone as beautiful as her would be sought after by men. Maybe she became more beautiful because she was loved by her fiancé. I'm glad she's found happiness. I had to keep telling myself that. I was surprisingly shaken, even to myself. Congratulations, Alicia. I finally managed to say the words I needed to say the most. Alicia gave me a small smile and said thank you, then turned her back to me. Well then, take care, Leslie. Saying that, Alicia raised her hand to hail a taxi. Seeing this, I found my body moving on its own. Alicia. Suddenly grabbed by the hand, Alicia's eyes widened in surprise. I was also shocked by my own actions, but somehow managed to force out some words. How about we go to the amusement arcade? The one in front of the station. I had a lot of fun. I used to come here with you a lot, Leslie. Sneaking in so my dad wouldn't find out. Remember? After we spent some time playing games together at the amusement arcade. Alicia, her expression much brighter than when we arrived, turned to me walking behind her. Thank you, Leslie. You were trying to cheer me up, weren't you? Is this what they call pre-wedding jitters? I've actually been a bit anxious since the wedding was decided. The wedding announcement was mostly an excuse. The real reason was that she wanted to see me. Alicia suddenly smiled, making my heart skip a beat again. Games are really fun, aren't they? Even though we're adults, it's kind of embarrassing, but it made me want to play like we used to. You're really gonna say that to me, a grown adult who's making games right now and loves them? Oh, sorry. That's not what I meant. I get it. It's your dad, right? Yeah. Alicia's father was an old-fashioned man and was strict about his daughter's upbringing. He particularly disliked games, calling them the cause of stupidity and bad behavior, and he never allowed them for Alicia. So, there wasn't a single game-related item in Alicia's house. Alicia could only play games when she came to my house under the pretense of studying or when we went to the amusement arcade together after school. Even as a child, she couldn't freely do what she wanted. Much less as an adult, she couldn't even sneak in a little time to relax and was always busy with work. I wondered if such a routine was the reason Alicia's expression was clouded. I'll lend it to you. Next time. A game. You want to play, right? In truth, I already had it in my pocket. But the words next time slipped out because I wanted an excuse to see Alicia again. Even if your dad finds out and takes it away, I'll lend it to you again. I've got enough to sell anyway. Leslie. This was a kind of gamble. If Alicia said, I don't need it, I would back off gracefully. I'd sincerely congratulate her on her marriage. And I'd try not to think about seeing her again. Thank you, Leslie. Next time for sure. When Alicia gave me her biggest smile of the day. I didn't even care that I had won the bet. The prospect of seeing Alicia again filled me with such happiness that I couldn't hide it anymore. I was so thrilled that I couldn't focus on my work until the end of the month when we'd meet again. I thought about Alicia all the time. But it wasn't because I had started seeing her as a woman. After all, Alicia was getting married soon. Then on the promised day. Leslie. A beautiful woman, who could turn heads, ran towards me at the meeting place, waving and smiling. I tried to keep my composure, but inside I was almost in a panic. Even in a casual shirt and jeans, how could she be as cute as she was at the reunion? Being laughed at like that, I could almost forget I'm getting married. Sorry to keep you waiting. I made it here without getting lost today. Oh, that's great. Her proud face was so cute that I couldn't look at it directly. I turned my face away and handed her the bag with the game console and cartridges. Here. I picked a console that's easy to hide and some games that you can play quickly in your free time. Wow, thank you. Alicia peeked inside the bag, her face lighting up. Then, the next moment, she said something I hadn't expected. Hey, are you free after this? I'd like to have some tea and chat with you, Leslie. That might not be a good idea. Not because my feelings might waver, but because being alone with her so close to her wedding, what if someone we know saw us? No, that's okay. It wouldn't be right for your fiancé. It's fine. Anyway. Alicia? No. It's nothing. It's fine. She insisted that I shouldn't worry about it. Alicia half forcefully took me to a nearby cafe. We barely touched our tea before she started bombarding me with questions. How are your parents? Do you ever go back home to visit them? Only around New Year's and the summer holidays, I guess. They're both doing well. What do you talk about when you visit? Like, what your life in New York is like, and stuff? Yeah, pretty much. They ask if I'm eating well and stuff. Also, if there's someone special in my life yet. Someone special, you mean, like a girlfriend? Yeah, I don't have anyone, though. But since my brother got married, they seem to expect I'll be next. You don't have anyone? No. What's with you, asking all these questions? When I raised my voice a bit, Alicia snapped back to reality and said, I'm sorry, slumping her shoulders. An awkward silence fell between us. I quickly tried to change the mood by pointing at myself. Look. I wasn't popular at all in middle or high school, right? Even now, nothing's changed, as you can see. But you're so handsome, Leslie. You said the same thing at the reunion, you know. Whether it's her naive personality or because of her upbringing as a rich girl. Alicia has always had a slightly different perspective. She still sees me, a completely average guy, as handsome. In what way? If I were really handsome, at least one or two women would have confessed to me. But I've never been told. I couldn't finish my sentence. Alicia was staring at me with wide, surprised eyes. Alicia. Never, then, the reason you didn't reply. In our senior year, I confessed my feelings to you, Leslie. But you never gave me an answer. Was it because you didn't realize it was a confession? What? This time, I was the one staring wide-eyed in shock. Alicia had confessed to me? I couldn't believe it, but Alicia wasn't the type to lie. And her face didn't look like she was lying at all. On Valentine's Day, I gave you handmade chocolates and said, this is how I feel about you. Oh. So that wasn't just out of obligation? I totally thought it was one of those friendship chocolates. As an excuse, Alicia's chocolates were of such high quality that I thought they were store-bought. And because her voice was so quiet, I had a feeling she said something, but I couldn't make out what it was. So I never even dreamed that she had confessed her feelings to me. Still, I was happy to receive them, even as obligatory chocolates. You were the only one who didn't make fun of me for being an introvert and stayed by my side. Looking back on it, I spent every free moment thinking about Alicia back then. I wondered what game we should play together next. I worried that she might hear something nasty said about her behind her back. I thought about what I could say to make Alicia smile tomorrow. Maybe those feelings were actually love? Maybe you were my first love, Alicia. Just kidding. I only meant it as a light-hearted joke. A joke I could laugh off because it would never come true. Alicia. That was until tears began streaming down from her wide-open eyes. I'm sorry. It just came over me all of a sudden. No, I should be the one apologizing. I said something weird out of nowhere. That's not it. Shaking her head repeatedly, Alicia continued to cry. She kept repeating I'm sorry and that's not it over and over again. I waited until Alicia's tears stopped. Not because I knew how to comfort a woman but because waiting was all I could do. Then, as the sun began to set. Let's go home, Alicia. I extended my hand to Alicia like I used to when we were kids. Having finally stopped crying, Alicia gave a small nod. Hesitantly, she placed her pale, delicate hand on mine. Okay, Leslie. In that moment, I finally admitted my feelings. I was in love with Alicia. I love you. Alicia, I really do. Even though I knew it would only cause trouble for her. I just had to let her know how I felt. On our way home, I confessed to Alicia, who was walking beside me. What? I love you. Even now, much more than I did back then. Is that because of how I look now? Well, honestly, that is part of it. But, I was joking. You're as serious as ever, Leslie. Finally, she smiled faintly. Standing in front of me, Alicia firmly said, I'm sorry. She said she was getting married, so she couldn't return my feelings. I know, as long as you're happy. That's all I want. Hey, Leslie. How about a bet? A bet? Surprised by her sudden proposal, I asked her what she meant. Alicia nodded, saying yes, and took out the game console I had given her earlier from her bag. With this, let's each play one game, and the one with the higher score wins. How about it? But what exactly are we betting? That is. Alicia smiled brightly and said. We were betting on her marriage. 15,000 points to 2,500 points. I lost so badly. The result of the match was a landslide victory for me. Despite her total defeat, Alicia looked strangely refreshed. And suddenly, she said something unbelievable. I lost, so I have to keep my promise. I won't get married. Huh, what? Because I bet my marriage on this. I quit. Wait, Alicia, I've never been married, but you can't just call off a wedding like that. I know, I just wanted to say it. Alicia smiled with the same slightly sad expression she had when she told me, I'm getting married. And the reason was, even though it was a marriage, hers was an arranged marriage. An arranged marriage. You'd think in this day and age? But it's a great deal. Just by marrying me, they'll lend us a large amount of money. Just by. Alicia's fiancé was the heir of a large company they did business with. He was 35, 10 years older than Alicia, and she wasn't fond of him. Looking down, Alicia muttered quietly. I've met him a few times, but he never smiles. Even when we're alone, he doesn't talk, and if I try to speak to him, he ignores me. It's like he's not interested in me at all. That's. I don't want to get married. But, Leslie, please don't tell my dad. She lifted her head and smiled at me. Tears welled up in her eyes, and her lips quivered. If that's the case, if she feels that way, she should dump that guy and choose me instead. The words almost escaped my throat. Even someone like me, who's out of touch with Alicia's world, understands the meaning of an arranged marriage. How many people are involved in their marriage and how much it will affect the future? No. I looked up but couldn't say anything, then lowered my head again. Seeing me like this, Alicia giggled. It's okay, Leslie. Thank you. You were trying to cheer me up, right? Saying you love me, even though it was a lie. Alicia wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes with her fingers, laughing. And then she said that she knew I already had a fiancé. What, fiancé? I actually saw you walking with a really beautiful woman, Leslie. It was about 3 years ago. When she went on a business trip to New York, she happened to see me. She was going to call out to me, but she overheard our conversation and couldn't help but run away. Alicia spoke with nostalgia. I look forward to our future together. I thought you were proposing, Leslie. That's when I realized my first love was over. It was sad. But I was finally able to move forward. Just wait a second. That's not true, Alicia. Alicia tilted her head in confusion, and I explained the truth to her. That was someone from the company. She came to scout me. That was during my senior year of college. I had already developed a hit game and was directly scouted by a major gaming company with an offer. Would you like to work for us? The woman Alicia saw was Catherine, the company's hiring manager. At the time, I had just agreed to the job offer. So Catherine was not my fiancée or anything like that. When I said, I look forward to working with you as a colleague, that's what I meant. No way, so, really. With her voice trembling, Alicia asked again. This time, I looked straight at her as I replied. I love you. Of course, the current you is beautiful, and if I let my guard down, I find myself staring. But it's not just that. Throughout the reunion, you were always concerned about me. You stood up to Kenneth, whom I struggled with in high school, for my sake. I love that kindness of yours that hasn't changed since back then. Even if you still looked the same as before, I'm sure I could have said this proudly. I love you, Alicia. You shouldn't have to get married if you don't want to, marry me instead. I thought that you liked women like her, Leslie. Even though I was heartbroken, I couldn't give up. I was overweight from a young age, and I thought I could never lose weight. But when I made up my mind and started dieting, the pounds started to drop quickly. Once I became slim, I wanted to try my best with beauty and makeup, which I hadn't cared about before. That's why I thought I was able to change because of that heartbreak. Alicia wiped her overflowing tears, smiling that gentle smile I loved from before. It's because of your own hard work that you've changed, Alicia. Not only that, but thank you anyway. For giving me the push I needed. Despite usually being reserved, her determination to work hard. And though she's shy, she can express her gratitude honestly. That's all the Alicia I love. So, what about you, Alicia? I love you too, Leslie. I always have, your kindness, how good you are at games, and how you never treated me differently. Treated you differently? Yeah. Everyone around me only saw me as the CEO's daughter. My father always said, you shouldn't play games, and forced me to take lessons like piano and horseback riding to be a proper lady. The kids my age either mocked me for my looks or kept their distance because we lived in different worlds. But you were different. When you asked me to play games with you, you don't know how happy that made me. Even though I was new to it, you never went easy on me. I never won. But I didn't feel bad at all. It was proof that you didn't treat me differently. It was probably just because I was a kid at the time. But Alicia, the woman I love most in the world, is smiling so happily. So maybe it's okay to keep the truth a secret for a while longer. Thinking this to myself, I smiled back at Alicia. However, just because we confirmed our feelings for each other doesn't mean we're at a happy ending. Alicia and I later went to face the final boss. Which means, the one who planned Alicia's arranged marriage, her father. It's been a while. Leslie, is it? Are you the one who says he wants to date Alicia with marriage in mind? As soon as we met at her parents' home, her father glared at me with sharp eyes. It was only natural. If Alicia's marriage was called off, the company wouldn't receive the loan. And the one interfering with the marriage proposal was a guy who developed games, which he hated. Of course, he wouldn't like me, and I didn't expect to be liked from the start. If he opposed us, I was prepared to persuade him until he agreed. Please. I'm serious about loving Alicia. Could you please allow us to date? Do you understand what that means? Yes. A cold chill ran down my spine, and I wanted to look away. Even though it wasn't cold, my hands began to shake uncontrollably. At that moment, Alicia, sitting next to me, suddenly took my hand. The warmth stopped my hands from trembling. Yes, as long as I can be with Alicia, I don't need anything else. I could even give up my beloved games. I'll quit my job. What? I'll work for your company, even without pay, to make up for the loan. For a lifetime, if I have to, so please allow me to date Alicia. Please, Dad. The two of us bowed our heads deeply. Even if he didn't say anything, I wasn't scared at all. Because Alicia was by my side. That's enough. Both of you, stop. Eventually, as if giving up, a calm voice reached us. When we raised our heads, Alicia and I simultaneously said, our faces showing surprise. The stern and displeased look of the man before us had turned into a faint smile. It was fun. The game you developed, Leslie. Alicia recommended it to me. And although I thought it was silly and ignored it, I finally gave it a try the other day. No way. Dad, you played a game. Yes, I never knew a game could be so enjoyable. He apologized for being opposed to it without knowing. Then he turned to Alicia and bowed his head. When he raised his head again, he looked directly at me. If you're truly determined, don't worry about the loan. You don't need to quit your job. Someone who can create something so enjoyable should continue to showcase their talents in the right place. And there's nothing more expensive than something free is a business truism. Saying this, he laughed warmly, a gentle expression that resembled Alicia's smile. So, Alicia, since you were a child, you were obedient and always listened to your parents, and I took advantage of that. I forgot that you're a smart girl who can make her own decisions. I mistakenly thought I could control you as I pleased. Ha! To think that there's someone you truly want to marry, it's the first time I've heard you express wanting something for yourself. And to hear you dislike what was given to you, you must have really hated it. I'm sorry for forcing you into marriage for my own convenience. If he's the one you've chosen, I'm sure he'll make you happy. Be happy together. Seeing her father smile gently, a tear rolled down Alicia's cheek. Dad! Father and daughter embraced tightly, and the long-standing tension between them seemed to completely dissolve. Leslie! Alicia has become very beautiful, hasn't she? Ah, yes. Very. If she grows old and is no longer beautiful, can you swear to me that you'll still cherish her just the same? Of course. Okay. Seeing her father nod with satisfaction at my response, Alicia wiped her tears and smiled, saying, "Thank you, Dad." Then we looked at each other and reaffirmed our feelings for one another. We had overcome our biggest hurdle together. Now, with the person in front of me, I felt we could overcome anything that came our way. Later on, after dating for about a year, Alicia and I got married. Since I could work remotely, I made arrangements with my company to return to my hometown. Of course, it was so I could live with Alicia. The dishes are done, and I finished the laundry too, Alicia. Thanks, Leslie. I've got breakfast ready for tomorrow morning, but should we do it tonight too? Of course. I'd love to do it as much as I want if it's with you, Alicia. Oh, come on. Alicia smiled with feigned exasperation, but still nodded and said, okay. Then she handed me one of the 2 game consoles. Perfect. I was just about to suggest it. I'm not losing today. Bring it on. I won't lose today either. We both work hard during the day, and at night we split the chores. After that, we play games together. It might be a little different from a typical newlywed life. But this is our version of happiness. Again today, my beloved smiles and says, "This is fun." Seeing that makes me happy too, and I smile back. If these days continue unchanged, no matter what else might change, I can proudly say that I'm happy. I went to a drinking party with my college friends, not knowing it was a mixer with beautiful secretaries. When I showed up in my worn-out work clothes, the incredibly beautiful secretary, who looked like a famous actress, showed her disgust. Really? Who wears work clothes to a mixer? How could you come in such dirty clothes? Confused by her sudden criticism, I wondered if she had some grudge against me as she continued to berate me with even harsher words. I came to this exclusive bar where it's hard to get a reservation, and now it feels like it stinks here. Work clothes are dirty, ugly, and smelly. Right? Seriously, who wears work clothes to a drinking party? It's so inappropriate. She looked at me as if I were something filthy. Seeing me hang my head, my handsome friend stepped in to help. Come on, let's all have a drink since we're here together. It's my fault for not telling him it was a mixer. Just let it slide this time, okay? Fine, but you'll make it up to me next time, won't you? She clung suggestively to the handsome pharmaceutical sales rep, looking down on me as she did. However, she had no idea that in the not-too-distant future, this relationship dynamic would reverse, leaving her in tears. My name is Samuel. I work as a researcher at a leading pharmaceutical company in the US. Being a researcher sounds nice, but in my case, it's a discretionary labor system. Our salaries are directly linked to performance evaluations, so it's surprisingly tough. The flexible hours are appealing, but conducting research requires a considerable amount of experiments. I arrived at work early and changed into the company-issued work clothes, then started checking the results of the experiments I set up the previous day and preparing for today's experiments. Good morning, Samuel. You're working hard early again today. Hey, Keith, good morning. I'm just wrapping up an experiment right now. That's great. This means we're getting closer to a new drug. I exchanged greetings with my colleague, Keith, and shared our schedules for the day. Oh, by the way, Samuel, you're definitely coming to the drinking party today, right? Don't forget like you usually do. Got it. I remembered that today was the day for a drinking party with my college friends. I realized I had come from home wearing my usual work clothes. Well, it's just a casual gathering with familiar faces, so it should be fine. Thinking lightly of it, I got back to my experiments. After finally entering the experimental data, I noticed it was well past quitting time. Wow, it's already this late. Time flies every day. As I sighed, my phone rang from the drawer of my desk. Hey, Keith? What's up? Answering the phone casually, I heard his loud voice from the other end. Hey! Where are you? I told you about the drinking party this morning, right? I reminded you again just a while ago. Do you know how many hours have passed since then? It's way past the meeting time. Hurry up! Oh no, I forgot. When I get absorbed in research, I lose track of my surroundings. People often say I'm a genius type on the positive side, but a recluse on the negative side. I'm often told that I'm indifferent to anything outside of research. I had completely forgotten about the drinking party with Keith. I hurried out of the lab and rushed to the designated place. Of course, I was still wearing the work clothes I had put on that morning. When I arrived at the meeting place, I saw my colleague Keith and my college friends lined up. Strangely enough, across from them were some beautiful women. Hey, Samuel. You're late. What? I thought this was just a drinking party with our college friends? One of our friends put his hands together apologetically. Sorry. I forgot to tell Keith that today was actually a mixer. What? To be honest, I'm not good with glamorous women. I've always been focused on research, mostly talking with science-minded women. Science-minded women have logical conversations that don't require reading between the lines. But I know that my blunt personality doesn't go over well with glamorous women. Moreover, today I'm wearing drab work clothes. There's not even a hint of a mixer atmosphere. Seriously, who wears work clothes to a mixer? How could you come in such dirty clothes? As expected, one of the women across from us complained. Looking closely, I realized the complaining woman looked a lot like a world-renowned actress, very beautiful indeed. However, her personality seemed incredibly nasty. I came to this exclusive bar that's hard to get a reservation for, and it feels like it stinks here. Work clothes are dirty, ugly, and smelly. Right? It's pitiful that someone could only come in such clothes to a mixer. As I hung my head at the sudden criticism, thinking here we go again, Keith stepped in to defend me, saying, Hey, don't say that. Everyone here is involved in pharmaceutical research, so they all work in work clothes. Keith said that to defend me. Oh, I imagined sharp-suited guys because it was supposed to be a mixer with a pharmaceutical company. This is such a letdown. Sensing the atmosphere souring before the mixer even started, I said, I'm sorry for ruining the mood. I'll excuse myself, so you all enjoy. I didn't know it was a mixer anyway, so let's catch up with the guys another time. Hey, Samuel. Don't say that. Now it sounds like it's my fault. This is the worst. The woman pouted as if implying it was my fault. Come on, let's all have a drink since we're here together. It's my fault for not telling him it was a mixer. Mary, just let it slide this time. Okay? Fine, but you'll make it up to me next time, right? The beautiful woman named Mary replied to my classmate, Liam. Liam, though it's not my place to say, is tall, fit, and fairly handsome. As a successful sales rep at a pharmaceutical company, he's likely caught the attention of many women today as well. Wanting to get a step ahead of the other women, Mary spoke to Liam in a sweet voice. Seeing her completely different expression from the one she showed me, even I thought she was not the one. Then, the woman sitting next to me at the end of the table spoke to me. Hi, I'm Lily. You're Samuel from that famous pharmaceutical company, right? I really admire your company. You keep developing new drugs one after another. It's amazing. I'm so happy to talk to you. Apparently, she had a serious illness as a child, but the drug our company developed helped her recover. That experience made her a passionate fan of our company. But I'm dressed in these unfashionable work clothes in such a stylish place. Doesn't it bother you? Not at all. I wanted to hear about your work and the drugs, so I don't care about the clothes. Actually, the work clothes make you look like a real researcher, which is cool. Her bright smile made her look like an angel to me. She kept bringing up different topics and laughing cheerfully before I had a chance to speak. While all the women at this mixer were secretaries, often seen as haughty, Lily was different, and I found myself moved by her. But just then, the unpleasant voice I heard earlier echoed from our front again. Oh, here comes Lily's goody two-shoes act. It's impressive you can suck up to such a boring guy in work clothes. Well, I don't have the hobby of drinking at a bar with a guy in work clothes, so you two boring people suit each other. Now she started to insult Lily too. Seeing the atmosphere turn cold again, Keith tried to say something, but I stopped him. Feeling sorry for Lily, I told her we'd talk more another time and left the bar. After leaving, I realized I hadn't exchanged contact information with Lily and felt disappointed. The next day, when Keith gently apologized for the previous night and I brought up Lily, he casually said, "Oh, Lily? I got her contact info. Want me to share it? Oh, I see." She was a fan of this company, not necessarily interested in me. Keith works here too, so it didn't have to be me. What was I expecting? Realizing this, I felt dejected. Seeing me suddenly lose my energy, Keith looked puzzled. What's wrong? Are you interested in Lily? Keith teased me, but honestly, I wasn't in the mood. Well, a budding crush I discovered for the first time had shattered in just one night. No, I need to check the experiment results soon. See you. Hey! Keith started to say something, but I didn't listen and went back to my lab. That's how the world works. Cheerful and likable guys like Keith are preferred over gloomy ones like me. I shifted my focus back to my research. With the new drug research at its final stage, I spent the next month practically living in the lab, barely going home. And finally succeeded in developing the long-awaited new drug. Congratulations! You finally did it. Thank you. I finally feel a weight off my shoulders. It's been a long journey to get here. Yeah, you did great. Thanks. The new drug I developed is a new anti-cancer drug I had dreamed of for years. By targeting only cancer cells in the body, it minimizes the impact on normal cells, reducing the unique side effects of chemotherapy. As a child, I lost my mother to cancer and watched her lose her hair and fight nausea due to the chemotherapy. She often cried, saying she wished she could forego treatment because the suffering was too much. After 2 or 3 rounds of treatment, she lost her vitality and could barely converse. Her immune system weakened to the point where she was confined to a clean room, making it difficult for us to visit her. Samuel, live a long life doing what you love. I'll be heading to heaven a little early, but I'll always be watching over you. In the end, those were my mother's last words before she passed away. Even as a child, I questioned the treatment. Why did she have to suffer so much from the drug meant to cure her illness? Wasn't there a way to target the disease without the pain? These questions sparked my interest in pharmaceuticals. I studied pharmacology and joined this company to reduce the suffering caused by chemotherapy. I dedicated myself to developing anti-cancer drugs with fewer side effects. Fortunately, during the development of this drug, I made several unexpected breakthroughs, leading to treatments for brain tumors and new painkillers. One of these drugs helped Lily overcome her serious illness. In a way, I felt a destined connection with her, but it seemed fate had no romantic plans for me. Then Keith brought up something unexpected. By the way, did Mary contact you on your phone? Wait, Mary? Who's that? I tilted my head, unfamiliar with the name. Keith made a bitter face. She's the woman who was rude to you at the mixer. Oh, her. While she was beautiful, her personality made her someone I didn't want to associate with. Why would she contact me? Apparently, she wants to apologize for the terrible things she said to you back then. No, there's no need for an apology. I just don't want to have anything to do with her ever again. Yeah, I figured you'd say that, so I refused to give her your contact info. Keith said awkwardly. Then she asked Liam for your number and tried to contact you several times, but you never responded. She complained to Liam, and he reached out to me. But I didn't want to bother you during such a critical time in your research, so I didn't say anything until now. Yeah, as you know, when I'm deep into my research, I focus solely on that. I'd been practically living in the lab for over a month. I didn't even have time to check my phone. Exactly. But a lot happened during that time. Did something happen? I asked Keith, feeling curious. Suddenly, I was called to the president's office. Samuel, Mr. Nelson wants to see you. Could you please come to the president's office? I gave Keith a quick nod, saying we'd talk later, and hurried to the president's office. When I arrived, President, Mr. Nelson, extended his hand for a handshake. Congratulations! You did a great job. Thank you. Now we can reduce the suffering caused by the side effects of chemotherapy. With a sense of fulfillment from finally achieving my dream, I shook Mr. Nelson's hand and let a tear slip down my cheek. I hadn't cried even when I lost my mother, but now the tears flowed. I couldn't cry back then because I couldn't accept the reality of my mother's absence and felt ashamed of my own helplessness. Thinking I didn't deserve to cry. Even though my mother wouldn't come back with this new drug, she would still gently pat my head and say, "You did well." Now, I felt it was okay to cry. That's how I felt. Have you made your decision? Mr. Nelson asked me that question. As I lifted my head to answer, I suddenly saw someone I didn't really want to see come into view. What are you doing here? Noticing my stunned expression, Mr. Nelson began introducing her to me. Oh, this is Mary. She'll be working as a secretary for us. Nice to meet you. I'm Mary. Looking forward to working with you. Her eyes were already looking down on me in my work clothes. She might have been trying to pretend it was our first meeting, but I couldn't forgive those condescending eyes. Mr. Nelson, I'm not sure how Mary was hired, but she isn't suitable for our company. Oh? And why is that? Mr. Nelson asked curiously, so I explained about her. This company stands on the hard work and dedication of its researchers, as you well know. Indeed. Our researchers are our greatest asset. But this woman dislikes the work clothes our researchers wear daily. She called them dirty, ugly, and smelly. Such an attitude doesn't fit our company's culture. You're right. A researcher's work clothes are like their battle armor. They are brave warriors fighting unknown diseases. We don't need someone who mocks their battle attire. What? Mary was the one who looked shocked by my words and Mr. Nelson's response. For a moment, she opened and closed her mouth as if trying to say something, then finally, with a determined look, she pointed at me and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Nelson, but he is the one unfit for this company." Oh? And why is that? Actually, I was waiting to gather evidence, but he has been leaking our clients' personal information to other companies. What? Me? I was dumbfounded by the accusation. As I stood there in disbelief, she opened her phone and showed a photo. This is a copy of the client information he gave to another pharmaceutical company. His phone should have the same data. I plan to inform Mr. Nelson and have him arrested. What nonsense! You're lying. It's true. If you're innocent, show us your phone. As we argued, the door suddenly knocked and opened without waiting for a response. There stood my colleague Keith and, surprisingly, Lily. Keith and Lily? What are you doing here? I asked, bewildered. Keith replied, I was going to tell you earlier, but Lily joined the company as a secretary right after that. Confirming Keith's words, Lily spoke. Yes. I didn't get to meet you then, but I've been working here for a month. It's a pleasure to meet you formally. Oh, I see. So, why are you both here? They had heard our argument from the president's office and thought there was trouble. When Lily saw Mary pointing at me, she gave her a sharp look, unlike her usual demeanor. Mary, are you trying to frame an innocent person, again? What are you talking about? Mary retorted. I know you were extracting personal information from the phones of men you met at mixers and selling it to rival companies. What nonsense are you talking about? Mary looked panicked. Keith then added to her distress. After the mixer, you contacted everyone, including Liam, right? We found out that their phone data was copied after you contacted them. So what? That doesn't prove anything. It could be a coincidence. Unfortunately for you, employees at pharmaceutical companies, especially researchers, are very strict about security. We have software installed that sends an alert to specific contacts if our phone data is copied. A month ago, Liam received such an alert. And so did the others you contacted. That's just a coincidence. Mary insisted. Lily then provided further evidence. Mary, you used the same method to get me fired. You stole client data from my phone and passed it to a rival company, spreading rumors that I was responsible. To clear my name, I hired professionals to investigate. The hacking software you used infects a target's phone when they answer a call, extracting data. The recipient of the data was traced back to your phone. That's a lie. You're just jealous of my skills and trying to frame me. Mary shouted. You've always tried to play the victim and weasel your way out of situations, haven't you? But not this time. I had professionals investigate your phone, and they found tons of incriminating evidence. What? You hacked my phone? That's a crime. You're the last person who should be saying that. After a fierce argument between the two women, Mary seemed to realize she was at a disadvantage. In a final desperate attempt, she pointed at me. The real culprit is this man. Yes, he must have tampered with my phone out of spite for making fun of him. Mr. Nelson, please believe me. It's all his fault. The accusation was so absurd it was almost laughable. Oh? And what benefit would I have from stealing information from everyone's phones? To be honest, I have access to personal information of far more influential people than my colleagues, or even Mr. Nelson. Why would I need any of this trivial information? What are you talking about? There's no way you have such connections. Mary retorted. This time, Mr. Nelson spoke up. No, he's telling the truth. Samuel has connections with CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies, renowned researchers worldwide, and even some Nobel laureates. What? Mr. Nelson, what are you talking about? Mary looked confused by Mr. Nelson's sudden statement. Mr. Nelson then added, because Samuel is my son and the next president of this company. What? Moreover, most of our major drugs were developed by him. He has been studying pharmacology on his own since childhood, and joined our company as a temporary researcher while still in middle school. He developed a famous treatment for a rare disease when he was in high school. We've kept his identity low-key to avoid poaching by other companies and offers from prestigious universities and renowned professors overseas. And now, he's developed a revolutionary anti-cancer drug. My time as president is over. What? It can't be. As Mary let out a foolish-sounding exclamation, security guards were already standing by in the room. By the way, we hired you to lure you into exposing your crimes. We've recorded everything with surveillance cameras and your computer's camera. Additionally, the data you sold to other companies included a special gift. The data I sold? Mary stammered. Yes, it contained a virus. The moment they opened it, they were infected. You will likely face severe consequences from them. What? How could you? Hearing this, Mary trembled. Her actions had now clearly exposed that she had stolen our company's information. After that, Mary was handed over to the police by security. Of course, we included all the evidence we had gathered. According to my father, she was one of the industrial spies operating around the pharmaceutical industry. She mainly targeted pharmaceutical researchers with honey traps, but ended up being manipulated by her targets instead, making her a rather incompetent spy. Having completed the much-anticipated new drug, I decided to take over my father's position as president. My father had asked me several times before, but I had insisted on completing the new drug first, and he had graciously waited. Lily, who had unknowingly joined our company, became a close confidant. By the way, Lily, what's going on between you and Keith lately? What do you mean? We're just as usual. Keith has always looked out for me since I was a child. Since you were a child? Oh, you didn't know? Keith is my cousin. He took care of me when I was sick as a child. Oh, I see. I realized I had made a huge mistake. I heard that he would be working with the person who developed the drug that cured my illness, and I asked to meet you. Even if just to see you up close. After joining the company, I learned that you were actually Mr. Nelson's son and the next president. So I was too intimidated to approach you. But now, I'm so happy we can talk like this. You're happy to talk to me? Yes, I've always admired you. Oh, really? I see. I felt foolish for assuming that Keith and Lily were romantically involved and thinking I should step aside. I had been a complete clown. After that, I took over as president and helped distribute the new drug worldwide. Lily, who supported me both professionally and personally, became my partner. Naturally, it was my friend Keith who helped bring us together. Hey, Keith. You always have my back. Don't you find me annoying? Not really, you're a clumsy research fanatic, but I don't find you annoying. Well, you're a good friend. Wait, you're my benefactor and my dear friend. What? Since high school, he had always looked out for me and taken care of me. I considered him a close friend, but it was the first time I had heard him call me his benefactor. What do you mean by benefactor? You know that rare disease Lily had? It's known to have a strong genetic component, right? Yeah. Well, my mother also had that disease. What? This was news to me. Keith's mother had been suffering from the rare disease for a long time, and she was in the final stages with little time left. Both he and his family had nearly given up hope due to the lack of effective treatments. Then one day, a groundbreaking new drug was developed domestically, which significantly improved the condition of those afflicted with the rare disease. Keith's mother was one of those who experienced this remarkable recovery. Wow, I had no idea. Yeah, you used to miss school a lot for your research. One day, I overheard the teachers talking about you in the staff room. They said you were a genius high school student who had developed an amazing drug. That's an exaggeration. It was just a byproduct of the research I was doing for the new drug. I was just lucky. But that byproduct saved my mother and Lily. When I found out you were the one who developed it, I was amazed and grateful. I felt ashamed for not doing anything meaningful while you were developing life-saving drugs. I wanted to do something too. But I knew I couldn't compete with you intellectually. So I decided to go to the same university as you and help you in any way I could. I see. I had the highest IQ score in the history of my elementary school. While teachers praised me, I felt out of place because my way of thinking was fundamentally different from other kids. I spent a lonely childhood with books and encyclopedias as my only friends. In middle school, it got worse, no one talked to me, and I was often isolated. Instead, I found joy in learning about pharmacology from company researchers, so I didn't need school friends. As a result, I barely attended school, just meeting the minimum attendance requirement. Nowadays, there are support groups and communities for gifted individuals, but those didn't exist during my school days, leading to severe isolation. I remembered how much fun I had in high school thanks to Keith. Honestly, he was the one who taught me how to interact with people. No matter the reason, you're an important friend to me. Let's keep supporting each other. Yeah, you can count on me. Keith and I laughed together. People recognize me as a genius who invented many new drugs. However, that's just the outcome. I owe it to my mother, who raised me while struggling with her illness, my father, who let me freely pursue my passion for pharmacology, my friends who never abandoned me, and Lily, who loves me for who I am. I've been supported by many people to get to where I am today. We often think we stand alone by our own power, but that's not true. We live supported by the love and kindness of many people. I want to remember this gratitude and continue to work hard so that I can repay their kindness someday. One morning, when I had an important presentation involving a $350 million deal, I helped a pregnant woman who was crouching at the station and arrived just in time for the presentation to start. At the venue, my colleague, who always sees me as a rival, had already distributed the materials and claimed the credit for himself. The next day, I was called by Mr. Waiter and was told I was fired. How dare you be late for such an important presentation? Helping a pregnant woman and being late? Stop lying. No, I'm not lying. I was just. As I tried to explain, my colleague interrupted. Oh, Mr. Waiter, this guy is always making up stories. It's a good thing I was able to cover for him this time. Or it would have been a huge loss for the company. Exactly. I hate liars the most. We don't need someone like you in our company. You're fired. Be gone. My colleague smirked next to me. Sure, it was my fault for being late. But to be fired without verifying anything. However, those who wronged me don't know. This is the countdown to their end. My name is Hugo, and I work at a venture company in a big city. Even though it's a venture company, it has already gained some recognition. And it's a great place where even someone like me with just a high school diploma can have their hard work and skills acknowledged. Because of that, the work is busy, but I live a fairly fulfilling life. Today, I came to a familiar bistro with my colleagues Kyle and Mia to celebrate the success of our team's presentation. This place, called Four Elements, is just off the main street and offers delicious seasonal dishes. The young hostess, Michelle, looks beautiful in a dress and is well liked by the customers. Of course, the food is also excellent, and I love their stews. It's like a nostalgic taste of home, and no matter how tired I am from work, just having a drink here washes away the fatigue. Oh, Hugo, it's rare to see you. Are you with your colleagues today? Yeah, we had a good day at work, so I thought we'd celebrate with some delicious food. Well, that's wonderful. Then I must show my appreciation for your patronage. Oh, thank you as always. Michelle smiled gently and handed me a hot towel. Then, Nia sighed softly as she looked at Michelle. Wow, you are really beautiful. How do you say, you have this mature charm? Guys must really like women like you. Oh my, thank you. It's flattering to be praised by someone so young. I'll give you a little extra as a thank you. Michelle said this and handed Mia a small dish. Here, this is for you. It's on the house. Wow, it looks delicious. Watching the interaction between those women, I sipped my beer with a warm feeling. Then Mia suddenly asked, Hugo, you also like women like her, right? Slightly choking, I replied, well, I don't think there's a guy who wouldn't like someone like her. Mia, visibly annoyed, poured more beer into my glass. See, I'm just a young kid with nothing but youth going for me. Hey, are you already drunk before you even started drinking? Quiet, I'm gonna drink a lot. Mia kept clinging to me, and it didn't sit well with Kyle. Kyle, who graduated from a famous university, was friendly when we joined the company. But his attitude changed as soon as he learned I only had a high school diploma. He would dump all the tedious work like data collection and analysis on me and take all the credit for himself. Hey, Hugo. I need this report by tomorrow. What? By tomorrow? I still haven't finished what you asked for yesterday. Come on, a high school graduate like you has the guts to handle it. Your only asset is your stamina, right? He said this in a jokingly sarcastic manner and shoved the work onto me. Mia, who didn't like Kyle's way of doing things, often grumbled about it. Seriously, he never does any of the tedious tasks and dumps everything on Hugo. Does he think he's better just because he's a university graduate? He's probably just jealous because everyone at work likes Hugo. Mia, come on. I'll manage somehow. Geez, Hugo, you're too nice. But don't overdo it, or you'll collapse. Yeah, thanks. That day, I stayed late into the night to finish all the work Kyle had assigned to me. I knew Kyle looked down on me because I was only a high school graduate, but I didn't feel any inferiority about my educational background. That's because I chose not to go to college. My mother ran a community kitchen from our home, providing free meals to children who couldn't afford proper food. She was what you would call a meddlesome, big-hearted mother. My father would help with the shopping after work, and I assisted with various tasks from a young age. Community kitchens attracted kids with all sorts of circumstances. Among them, there was a sibling pair named Mimi and John who came frequently. Their household was a single mother family, and their mother worked multiple part-time jobs. For dinner, the two of them would share a single PJ sandwich. Whenever I saw Mimi and John, they always looked so skinny. I remember my mother bringing them to our kitchen one day, seeing how thin they always were. Kids need to eat a lot, play hard, and sleep well. That's their job, she said, laughing heartily as she served them mashed potatoes and pork stew. It seemed like it had been a long time since they had a warm meal, and they ate eagerly, saying how delicious it was. From that day on, they came to our kitchen daily, and we became like siblings. I wonder what Mimi and John are doing now. I hope they're doing well. I often think about them like they are my real siblings. The community kitchen received some donations from NPOs, but most of the costs were covered by the owners. We got most of our ingredients directly from the garden my grandparents maintained as a hobby. As an only child, I enjoyed having so many small companions around. Watching young siblings eat my mother's meals with big smiles made me happy. During such a life, when I was in high school, my father passed away due to illness. My mother intended to close the community kitchen, but I didn't want her to stop, so I decided not to go to college and started working instead. Eventually, a few years later, my mother followed my father, and we had to close the kitchen. But I don't regret my choice. I loved seeing my mother smile while running the kitchen. Even now, I occasionally recall my mother cooking happily and the children enjoying her meals. I heard that Mimi and John were taken in by some distant relatives. Sometimes, I wonder how they are doing now and find myself feeling sentimental. Kyle mocks me for my educational background, but I believe having the skills to do the job well is more important than having a degree. So no matter how much he belittles me, I decided not to let it bother me and to keep working hard. Having finished the data analysis Kyle had pushed onto me, I started preparing materials for tomorrow's project meeting. In that meeting, we were to decide where to focus our efforts for a new product line our company would handle. In the end, the meeting concluded with a decision to handle high-revenue products, considering cost-effectiveness. After the meeting, I was stopped by our department head manager, Travis. "Hugo, I'd like you to handle the presentation for the new product. It involves acquiring a new client, so stay focused. If successful, this could be a $350 million deal." "Thank you. But $350 million. That's a lot of responsibility." Feeling the weight of the responsibility, I was reflecting on it when Kyle, who had also been in the meeting, spoke up to Travis. "Travis, why are you giving such a big task to someone like Hugo with no degree? Shouldn't I be the one handling it?" Travis frowned slightly at Kyle's self-promotion while subtly insulting me. "No, this project involves many of the junior staff. We need someone like Hugo, who is trusted by them, to lead. Kyle, you should assist him." "Got it. Understood." Clearly displeased, Kyle didn't press Travis any further, and we began preparing for the new presentation. "Hugo, let's make sure this is a success." "Yeah, let's do our best." As my teammates and I started preparing, even Kyle, who initially wasn't very cooperative, began helping with the material preparation. "Hey, Hugo, should this data go on page 6? "Yeah, that'd be great." "Thanks." Both Mia and I were initially suspicious of Kyle's sudden change, as he started helping without any snide remarks. Eventually, we let our guard down, thinking he might have finally turned over a new leaf. However, at that moment, I had no idea this would be a major pitfall. The presentation materials that my team and I stayed up late to complete turned out excellently. I was eagerly awaiting the day, confident that we would succeed. On the morning of the presentation, as I had to visit the client's company, I woke up earlier than usual and took extra care not to be late. But trouble often strikes at the worst times. On my way to the station, I saw a heavily pregnant woman crouching and holding her stomach. She was in visible pain, her forehead covered in sweat. Since it was rush hour, passers-by merely glanced at her without stopping. I couldn't just walk by, so I ran over and spoke to her. "Are you okay?" Noticing my voice, the woman slowly lifted her head and replied in a tearful voice. It hurts, my belly." "Is it labor pains?" "Yes, I think so." Nodding painfully, she confirmed it was labor. She mentioned there was a nearby clinic she usually visited. Though her due date was still ahead, labor had suddenly started. I quickly hailed a taxi and took her to the hospital. Once we arrived, a family member of hers showed up shortly after, so I wished her well and hurried to the presentation venue. I arrived just in time and apologized to my team. Looking around the room, I saw that Kyle had already distributed the materials. Thanks, Kyle, you really saved me. Don't mention it, we're a team. Now get ready to start. Yeah, thanks. I hastily finished preparing and managed to start the presentation just in time. However, as I began speaking, a quiet murmur spread through the room. Soon, one of the clients spoke up irritably. Hey, the materials don't match the projector presentation. What's going on? The data in the handouts is completely different from the estimates. Did you even check this? Presenting such sloppy data shows a lack of respect for our company. Hearing these criticisms, I checked my materials in confusion, only to find that they were completely different from what I had prepared. What? What's going on? Beside me, Kyle let out a small, quiet laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the error in the materials. Please take a look at these updated handouts. Kyle said, distributing the correct materials I had prepared. Then, taking the microphone, he added, from here, I'll take responsibility for the explanation, looking at me with a mocking smile. Since it was a $350 million deal, I had to step down quietly to not disrupt the atmosphere, though I was filled with frustration. Kyle's explanation was based entirely on the script I had prepared. I've been tricked, I thought, clenching my fist in anger. Kyle had likely planned this from the start, aiming to make me look incompetent and himself more capable to the higher-ups. Though the presentation ended smoothly, Kyle's actions had left my reputation in tatters. I was now seen as the guy who was late and used the wrong materials. That was my new reputation. The next day, Mr. Waiter came to my department and reprimanded me harshly. What were you thinking? Not only arriving just in time for the presentation, and then used the wrong materials. You've disgraced our company. Unbelievable. I am truly sorry. I sincerely apologized, though it sounded like an excuse. Explained that I had been delayed helping a pregnant woman and that the materials had been switched. But Kyle interrupted me. Mr. Waiter, everything Hugo is saying is completely false. This guy is all talk and always manages to deceive everyone. Even during the last successful presentation, Travis gave Hugo all the credit, but I did all the data analysis. As for the materials this time, when I checked with him, he assured me they were correct. But from my experience, I felt something was off. So I prepared backup materials just in case. Thankfully, they came in handy. Everything Kyle said was a lie. But in this situation, Mr. Waiter wouldn't believe anything I said. I swallowed my frustration. Is that so? Your name is Kyle, right? I heard you graduated with honors from a prestigious university. Indeed, education doesn't lie. Well done. If this deal had fallen through, our company would have suffered greatly. Not at all. I just did what needed to be done. Such humility is commendable. Still, I had heard from Travis that Hugo was a promising talent. This is disappointing. And I hate liars. We don't need someone who is late to important meetings and lies in our company. Hugo, you're fired. What? My mind went blank at the sudden notice of termination. Mia, who had been listening behind me, started to speak up to Mr. Waiter. Mr. Waiter, Hugo is not at fault at all. Mia, it's okay. But Mr. Waiter glared at Mia behind me. Ah, a loyal junior to Hugo, I see. Questioning my decision, looks like he taught you well not to follow company rules. It seems high school graduates aren't properly taught social rules. Worried that saying more would worsen her situation, I quickly opened my mouth to protect her. Mr. Waiter, as you said, this mistake is entirely my responsibility. She doesn't know anything about it. I am deeply sorry. Very well. If you understand, submit your resignation and leave immediately. Yes, I understand. After Mr. Waiter left the room, Kyle turned to me with a sneer. See? Without a degree, you can't do anything right. Checking the materials beforehand is basic. Hey, you. And stop trusting people so easily. Also, stop trying to please everyone. It will only hurt you. Mia, you really picked the wrong senior. If you'd been under me from the start, I'd have taken good care of you. No, thank you. I don't need someone who steals credit through dirty tricks. Fine, but don't come crying later. I realized this was Kyle's true nature. I knew he looked down on me because of my high school diploma, but I didn't expect him to go to such lengths to ruin me. Despite doing everything he asked without complaint, why did he resent me so much? The more I thought about it, the more empty I felt. My juniors, including Mia, were dissatisfied with Kyle's actions and Mr. Waiter's decision, and they opposed my dismissal. But in our company, the president's orders are absolute. Unless there's a compelling reason, such decisions cannot be overturned. I calmed everyone down and decided to use my accumulated vacation time starting the next day. Though I had been with the company for a long time, once my vacation ended, it would be goodbye. That night, I stopped by our usual bistro, for Elements. Michelle greeted me with her usual gentle smile, and I couldn't help but feel emotional. Seeing my face, she seemed to sense something was wrong. Here, this one's on me. Drink up and forget about your troubles, she said. Michelle. I got fired from my job. Oh dear. But knowing you, there must have been a reason, right? Yeah, sort of. Do you remember Kyle, the colleague who came here with me last time? Of course, I remember. He set me up. I told her about meeting the pregnant woman on my way to the presentation, taking her to the hospital, almost being late, and falling into Kyle's trap. So that's what happened. But Hugo, you did a wonderful thing by helping that pregnant woman and her baby. That's incredible. Any company that fires someone for doing the right thing has a bleak future. Maybe it's a good thing you left early. Do you think so? Absolutely. You'll find a new job soon, Hugo. Thanks, Michelle. But since I'll be unemployed for a while, I might not be able to come here. Don't say such sad things. You can pay me back when you get your next job. It's fine to come even for free. Michelle, that's too generous. But it makes me happy to hear you say that. Thank you. Don't worry. Something good is definitely coming your way. My hunches are usually right. Michelle's bright smile seemed dazzling. About 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. I couldn't think of anyone who would visit me except for delivery people, so I headed to the door, only to find Michelle standing there. Michelle? How did you find my place? Hugo, long time no see. How have you been? There's someone who really wanted to meet you, so I asked Mia for your address and brought her here. Someone wanted to meet me? Yes. This is Samantha Sawyer. She's the woman you helped 2 weeks ago. Oh. How are you doing now? Thanks to you, I'm doing well. The baby was born healthy, and it's all thanks to you. I can't thank you enough. Samantha bowed deeply to express her gratitude. I'm glad to hear that. So the baby was born safely. As I responded, her expression suddenly darkened. But I heard you got fired for helping me. What a terrible company. I can't believe the nerve of your boss. It's all in the past now, so you don't need to worry about it. No, I can't just ignore it. The person who saved me and my baby's lives is facing such an injustice. I can't just stand by. Could you tell me more about what happened? Responding to her earnest request, I recounted the events in detail. Come to think of it, I hadn't talked this much to anyone in a while. I see. But if that's the case, I think I can help. Yes, I have some interesting information too. If you want to get back at them, I have a good idea. Really? What do you mean? We discussed various plans for the future. Hugo, have you been eating properly? Michelle handed me a food tray filled with beef stew and other prepared foods from the bistro. Humans need proper meals to stay strong. You have to eat well to prepare for what's next. Michelle, thank you. Don't mention it. By the way, Hugo, did you give Samantha one of our bistro's business cards at the hospital? Yeah. So that's why you came here with her. Exactly. You're quite absent-minded, aren't you? Sorry. I laughed it off, but in truth, I was incredibly embarrassed. Being a huge fan of Bistro 4 Elements and Michelle, I had always carried the bistro's business card with me as a sort of good luck charm. In my rush to get to the presentation, when Samantha asked for my contact info, I accidentally handed her the bistro's card. After being fired, I couldn't find the card anywhere, realizing I had given it to Samantha by mistake. But in the end, it worked out, as I gained strong allies in Samantha and Michelle. All's well that ends well. Samantha, do you still have that business card? Yes, I do. Here it is. I've kept it safe. Could we trade it for this one? Why? Asked Michelle, curious. Feeling awkward, I answered honestly. I love Michelle's Bistro. No matter how tired I am, stepping into the restaurant instantly refreshes me. So the business card is like my lucky charm. My, that's so sweet. Michelle blushed with a pleased expression. Until you find a new job and proudly come back to the bistro, I'll deliver our food to you, she offered. What? Hugo, you can't refuse a lady's offer. Samantha added with a knowing smile. Blushing, I thanked Michelle. On the last day of my leave, I headed to the office. Then Travis came rushing to get me. Hugo, and Kyle. Everyone involved in the presentation the other day, come to the president's office immediately. What? Kyle looked confused about why he was being called, but I had a sense of what might happen next. Well, it'll be nice to see you get a scolding from Mr. Waiter one last time, Kyle said with a smug grin, while I mentally stuck my tongue out at him. When we arrived at the president's office, we found Mr. Waiter with a pale face and the client company's president. Hugo, please forget about your resignation, Mr. Waiter said as soon as he saw me. What? Mr. Waiter, what's going on? Today was supposed to be my last day at this company. It's about the $350 million deal we signed the other day. The client president insists that you handle it. If you don't, they'll cancel the deal. Listening to Mr. Waiter's desperate explanation, Kyle quickly objected. Mr. Waiter, what are you saying? You said this liar was unnecessary for the company. And you told me I would be in charge of this deal. Shut up. This is not the time for that. Then, the client president, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Why did you call Hugo a liar? Mr. Sawyer, it's because he lied about being late to the presentation because he helped a pregnant woman. Oh? Hugo, was your reason for being late a lie? No, it was true. I helped a woman who had gone into labor and took her to her hospital, which made me late to the presentation. I see. And who was this woman you helped? Her name was Samantha Sawyer, a woman in her 20s. She recently visited my home to thank me and said her baby was born safely. Interesting. My own grandchild was just born, and my daughter was also helped by a kind man at the station. His name was Hugo. If I remember correctly. What? The client president laughed joyfully, like a child who had pulled off a prank. So, Mr. Sawyer, you're saying Hugo helped your daughter? Yes, indeed. How could I stand by when the man who saved my daughter and grandchild is being called a liar and fired? Kyle's face contorted with anger as he spoke. But putting him in charge just because of that is completely personal. He presented incorrect materials and is incompetent. Helping someone and workability are separate issues. Oh? You say he's incompetent? Yes, exactly. He's a high school graduate who can't do his job properly. Kyle shouted. At that moment, Mia, who had come with us to the president's office, spoke up. Mr. Waiter, I have a report about the materials used in the presentation. Mia, what is it? Yes. The incorrect data in the presentation was created by Kyle. I verified the properties and logs of the printed materials. It was Hugo who created the correct materials that Kyle later distributed. What? So, Kyle was the one lying from the start? Yes, that's correct. Mr. Sawyer added to Kyle, who had turned pale. And I hear you even paid some young people to cause a scene during the presentation? What? Mr. Sawyer, what are you talking about? Kyle tried to deny it, but Mr. Sawyer continued with amusement. I found it odd that some young people who usually wouldn't make a fuss were creating such a ruckus over incorrect materials. After hearing about Hugo from my daughter, I questioned them. They confessed they were paid by you to swap Hugo's materials and create a commotion. Kyle, what have you done? So, all this time, it was Hugo doing the work, and you were taking the credit? Mr. Waiter exclaimed. That's a lie. I'm better at this job than a high school graduate like him. Everyone always praises Hugo. But I'm the one who truly cares about this company. Kyle shouted. That's the biggest lie of all. Suddenly, the door to the president's office swung open, and in walked Samantha and, surprisingly, Michelle in a suit. What? Samantha. And Michelle? I stammered. Samantha, looking every bit the professional, gave me a quick wink. Before glaring at Kyle. Nice to meet you. I'm Samantha Sawyer, Vice President of Sawyer Trading, and the woman Hugo helped. I've come to report Kyle's fraudulent activities. Fraudulent activities? Mr. Waiter couldn't hide his surprise at this revelation. In this recent deal, our representative, Harrison, was approached by Kyle with a scheme for inflated billing. They planned to split the profits evenly, already having prepared a falsified invoice for $100,000, with $50,000 each. Harrison consulted me at the last minute, wondering what to do. So Kyle's claim of being loyal to your company is a complete lie. That's a lie. I've never heard of anyone named Harrison. Kyle desperately denied. Now it was Michelle's turn, in her suit, to speak. Oh, come on, Kyle. You and Harrison come to my bistro quite often. Just last night, you were both there. I even have a video of you two on my phone. She showed the video on her smartphone, which clearly captured Kyle and Harrison discussing their plan. All you have to do is follow what I said, and you'll make a fortune. One deal, $100,000. Easy money, right? Kyle said, with his arm around Harrison's shoulder. This video was undeniable evidence. I filmed this because the conversation was so suspicious. Kyle always acted rudely and bothered other customers. Despite my protests, he wouldn't stop. I recorded it for moments like this, in case of any trouble. Michelle explained with a smile but cold eyes. Damn you! You all conspired against me. How could you prefer this high school graduate over me? I'm an elite graduate from a prestigious university. I'm far superior to him. Kyle shouted, losing his composure. Shut up. Everything is your fault. You're fired, Kyle. Mr. Waiter yelled, his face red with anger. Hearing the commotion, security arrived and restrained Kyle, who was still shouting. He was placed on administrative leave immediately. So, Hugo, what do you want to do? Do you still want to work here? Mr. Sawyer asked. I shook my head decisively. No, I don't plan to return to this company. What? Hugo, please come back. Mr. Waiter pleaded. No, Mr. Waiter. At first, I thought this company was great because it gave someone like me a chance. But this incident showed me otherwise. I want to work somewhere I can truly utilize my skills. That's right. Hugo deserves that. He should thrive in a new environment. So, Dad, as the vice president, I want to hire him for our company. Is that okay? Samantha asked. Suddenly Samantha wants to hire me. This was a golden opportunity for me. Having recently learned about their company from Samantha, I found it intriguing. Of course. I was planning to hire him personally. Mr. Sawyer replied. Thank you, Dad. So, Hugo, let's work together from now on. Yes. Thank you very much. Thus, I joined Sawyer Trading, which has branches all over the world. Now, I'm in charge of the import division, bringing in various goods from overseas. I have a close relationship with Samantha's family, and I've become good friends with her son, Hayden. After Kyle was fired, the $350 million deal was cancelled. However, I now import the cosmetics that were supposed to be purchased from my previous company at a much lower price. resulting in substantial profits for Sawyer Trading. Samantha is in an excellent mood. And as for me, Michelle has become more than just a friend. In fact, she's practically moved in with me. Today, I'm enjoying her delicious cooking at Four Elements, along with some fine sake. This is my moment of bliss. Recently, another regular has joined us at the bistro. It's Mia, my former colleague, now drinking sake in front of me. I finally transferred to Sawyer Trading to get closer to Hugo, but I was too late. So frustrating. She had followed me to Sawyer Trading and had become a respected buyer known for her female perspective on purchases. But I understand that Michelle is unbeatable. One day, I'll become as wonderful as her and find someone even better than Hugo. Oh, Mia, you're already wonderful. Michelle reassured her. Thank you. Another round of your recommended sake, please. Hey, take it easy, I said, trying to calm her down. Michelle laughed and placed a dish of stewed food in front of me. As I ate, I praised her cooking again. Michelle, your cooking always hits the spot. It's like a nostalgic taste of home. Really? I'm glad you like my cooking. But it's no surprise you do, Hugo. Really? Why's that? Haven't you figured it out yet? Hugh. Wait, that name. Could it be Nini? Yes, it's me, Nini, also known as Michelle. No way. You've changed so much, I didn't recognize you at all. She was the same Mimi who used to come to our community kitchen for dinner every night. Then what about your brother, John? Oh come on, Hugh, you see him all the time. He's our head chef now. What? That John is the muscular chef with the buzz cut? Yes, that's him. You must be shocked, right? He used to be so skinny, and now he's got muscles like a gorilla. But we owe everything to your mother. The taste of her food is what we strive to replicate. We're truly grateful. That makes sense. No wonder your cooking tastes so familiar. To us, food is linked to happiness. When you're hungry, you feel so sad and can't do anything. But at the community kitchen, after a full meal, we felt so happy and slept well at night. John felt the same way. Your mom gave us happiness. After we were taken in by our grandparents, we had proper meals, but we always remembered the food from the community kitchen. I worked hard, hoping to one day cook meals with that same gentle taste. And now, you're really doing it. Your cooking is truly delicious. I'm so glad to hear that. My next goal is to save enough money to start my own community kitchen. That's great. I'm sure you'll achieve that dream. Community kitchens, once reliant on donations, now see participation from major convenience store chains. Many kids would find happiness in just receiving food that would otherwise be discarded, like lunchboxes and snacks. However, a warm, home-cooked meal can also warm a person's heart. Michelle wants to run a community kitchen that offers such warmth. Knowing how challenging it is, I want to help her realize this dream as much as I can. To that end, I plan to find a way to import affordable ingredients from overseas someday. This connection brought by warm meals is a precious one. It's a bond that my mother created with her kindness and smile. I want to cherish this important connection forever. You should go to a rural clinic. We can't keep someone who has committed such misconduct at a university hospital. As the head of surgery at the university hospital, I've long been seen as a rival by the director's son, Stephen. And now, in front of the director, Harold, Stephen is falsely accusing me of misconduct. I didn't do anything like that. I protested to Harold, but he wouldn't listen. Anyway, we have all the evidence. We don't want to make a big deal out of this, so we'll keep it quiet. However, Kyle, you will have to take responsibility. You'll be sent to a rural area. No way. Harold is protecting Stephen and seems determined to demote me. Stephen grinned wickedly as he watched me panic. Ha ha. Kyle, you can go plow some fields. You filthy quack. And so, I was unjustly transferred from the university hospital to a rural clinic. But at that time, no one knew yet. The people who framed me were going to face a severe reckoning. My name is Kyle Turner. I'm a surgeon working at a university hospital in Tokyo. Ever since I was a child, I was skilled with my hands and had a strong curiosity. To satisfy my thirst for knowledge, I entered the surgical department after graduating from medical school. Following my entry, I followed a senior doctor I respected and gained experience with many different cases. I've performed over 50,000 surgeries and am rumored to be a candidate for the next professor. Patients speak highly of me, and thanks to word of mouth, patients are referred to me from not just nearby hospitals but also from rural areas. As a result, I've been entrusted with the role of head of surgery. Dr. Turner, the patients you operated on have been getting out of bed quickly, which is really surprising. Their discharge times are also fast. So the bed turnover rate is excellent, which really helps us. Smiling as she spoke to me was Rachel, the head nurse of the surgical ward. Thank you. Well, it's always better for patients if they can be discharged sooner. My surgeries are known for being quick and meticulous. Because the incisions are small, there is little bleeding. Recently, I've been performing many endoscopic surgeries, which further shortens the hospitalization period. As the head of surgery, I have to consider the number of surgeries and bed turnover rates, but in my case, these results naturally improved as I focused on providing less burdensome medical care to patients. In short, my reputation improved unintentionally. However, the one who doesn't like me is Stephen Scott, the director's son. Stephen is the deputy head of surgery and has some decent skills. But having grown up spoiled because he's the director's son, his attitude towards patients and staff is arrogant, and complaints are constant. Dr. Turner, a request has come from Natalie in room 2 to change her primary doctor from Dr. Scott to you. When asked why, she said Dr. Scott's attitude is terrible and he doesn't listen to her at all. Additionally, he tried to force her to use a new experimental drug. She absolutely refused, but he threatened her, saying he wouldn't treat her otherwise. What should we do? Rachel asked, looking troubled. These kinds of complaints about Stephen are endless. I see. I'll talk to Stephen about it. Even if I subtly criticized Stephen, he wouldn't listen at all. Huh? Listening to the complaints of elderly patients in a shared room won't get you anything. I'm offering them a new drug out of kindness. And they have the nerve to refuse? How presumptuous of those poor people. According to him, the problem wasn't his fault but the envy of poor patients. I can't understand how he interprets things to reach such an overbearing conclusion. By the way, Kyle, I heard you met with the pharmaceutical company's sales representative about the experimental drug the other day? Yes, they came to collect last month's data, so I spoke with them briefly as they were leaving. Oh. You let us handle the data collection and just take the credit for yourself. Typical Kyle. Saying I only take the credit is unfair. My patients are also participating in the trial. It's natural to check the data and report the results. Well, if you say so, for now. Stephen made a suspicious remark and left, but I didn't pay much attention to it as it was usual for him. However, one day, I was called by Harold and accused of something outrageous. I received a notice to come to the director's office on a hot summer afternoon. When I opened the door to the director's office, there were Harold and Stephen. Kyle, I had high hopes for you, but this time you've done something unforgivable. Harold, I'm not sure what you mean. When I was bewildered by the sudden accusation, Stephen interjected. We already know that you have been illegally using experimental drugs and inflating data. And that you received money from the pharmaceutical company's sales representative as a cooperation fee. What? What are you talking about? I have never done such a thing. In fact, it's Stephen who has been trying to use experimental drugs without the patient's consent, right? I directly appealed to Harold. But beside him, Stephen had a twisted smile on his face. No. That clinical coordinator and the pharmaceutical sales representative testified that you threatened them into cooperating, Kyle. I would never commit such fraud. Anyway, we have all the evidence. We don't want to make a big deal out of this. You will have to take responsibility quietly. No way. Of course, I would never engage in such misconduct. This is clearly Stephen's conspiracy and false accusation. That's why poor people are troublesome. You committed fraud to get money, used it to curry favor, and climbed to the top. An incompetent poor person like you should just retreat to the countryside and farm. And so, I was unwillingly demoted from the university hospital to a rural clinic. News of my demotion spread quickly. Dr. Turner. I heard about it. This is an unbelievable injustice. Kimberly, the head nurse of the surgical ward, said angrily. However, if I openly resisted Harold, it would be terrible if Kimberly and the nurses were fired. I didn't want to cause them trouble because of me. Thank you. I'm just happy you believe in me. Well, I think of this as an opportunity to reflect on myself in a place with fresh air. Dr. Turner. Kimberly looked sad, and the other nurses also looked at me with sorrow. On the day I left the university hospital, not only the patients but also the nurses and doctors who were not part of Stephen's faction were sad to see me go. In the car moving to the rural clinic, I quietly cried, unnoticed by anyone. My new workplace was located in a scenic spot between famous mountain ranges and upstream of a river. Although it sounds picturesque, it was a hiking area with hot springs and inns, with a population of a few hundred. Less than the number of beds at the university hospital. The clinic had an old doctor named Nick and a nurse in her late 20s named Sophia. Nick had a very laid-back personality, often chatting with patients for an hour and generally lacking motivation. Sophia hardly spoke more than necessary and watched TV in the waiting room in silence, resting her chin on her hand. The patients visiting the clinic mainly had colds, stomachaches, or minor injuries, so it was very quiet. On rainy days, not a single patient came, and Nick and Sophia would have tea and snacks. The relaxed and slow atmosphere was almost unbearable for someone like me, who had been working in the fast-paced environment of a university hospital. Are there any patients today? When I asked Sophia, she replied with an exasperated look. This isn't a university hospital in the city. Few patients is a sign of peace. Just because you're bored doesn't mean you should wish for more patients. Besides, even if patients come, you can't treat them alone. It seemed that as a doctor demoted from a university hospital, I was not trusted to treat patients. Oh, staying here won't accomplish anything. Thinking that, I decided to leave the clinic and visit the village. Excuse me, I'm stepping out for a bit. Alright, take care. As I left the clinic, the two of them looked at each other with resigned expressions. Hey Nick, how long do you think Dr. Turner will last? I'll bet $100 on 1 month. I think 1 month is the limit too. Stepping outside the clinic, I couldn't help but exclaim at the stunning scenery in front of me. Wow, the river water really looks drinkable. The river reflected the mountains and sparkled, highlighting the blue sky. The transparency of the water, clear to the bottom, showed its cleanliness. Descending the mountain path towards the houses, the gaps between them were unusually long. The nearest house to the clinic was several miles away, making the journey a laborious task without a car. I only saw elderly people, with hardly any young people around. Hello? When I called out to the first villager, he returned a nod of surprise. Oh, are you here for hiking? You seem lightly equipped for that. No, I just started at the clinic here 2 days ago. My name is Kyle. Ah, so you're the new doctor? Thank you for coming to such a remote place. But you won't stay long, will you? Doctors who come here leave soon. I've lost count of how many have come and gone. Is that so? But I want to help everyone, so you don't need to worry. Is there anything you're struggling with? Well, I've had a bad back for a while now. Back pain, huh? If you don't mind, may I take a look? After that, I started visiting the village houses, greeting people and asking about their health. To my surprise, I found that many elderly people far from the clinic needed care, and the community was helping each other. Some clearly had illnesses, and I promised to visit them regularly. You might wonder why they don't come to the clinic despite their poor health, but for elderly people with physical ailments, walking several miles along the mountain paths is very difficult. Sometimes family members or neighbors request house calls, but by then, the symptoms are often severe. Since I technically worked at the clinic, I visited those needing treatment during the day as house calls. For others, I decided to visit their homes after clinic hours. From then on, as soon as clinic hours ended, I would head out to the village. Nick and Sophia, sipping tea, seemed puzzled that I hadn't given up yet. Ah, it's been a month since Dr. Turner came here. He seemed bored at first, but now he's strangely enthusiastic and doesn't seem like he'll quit. Sophia muttered resentfully. Nick replied with amusement. Well, who knows? Maybe Kyle is reaching his limit. He's been fiddling with some equipment in the back room, doing side jobs. Young folks these days lack motivation. They quit as soon as they're bored. No perseverance. A villager who came to get medication for a family member overheard their conversation and chimed in. Are you talking about Dr. Turner? Nick, you're mistaken. Dr. Turner visits village houses after work. Kyle does? Yes. Just the other day, an old man at Sean's house choked on some food. Fortunately, Dr. Turner was there and prevented it from becoming serious. Really? People often don't come for checkups because they have trouble walking or because the clinic is closed after they finish work. That's why your house calls are so appreciated. I see. Nick and Sophia were surprised by what they heard from the villager. Indeed, the villagers often complained about the difficulty of reaching the clinic. But they assumed that those who didn't come weren't serious enough to visit. The next day, Nick suddenly spoke to me when I arrived at the clinic. I heard you've been visiting village houses lately? Yes. Many people have trouble walking up to the clinic. Visiting them, I found many with untreated conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes. I thought it would be better to visit them directly than to let their conditions worsen. You're a peculiar one. Nick turned his face away abruptly. Apparently, my visits to the villagers' houses had been discovered. I thought I might get scolded but wasn't told off. Since then, on days with few patients, I was allowed to leave early for house calls. One day, as I was getting used to life in the village, a rumor spread that a TV station was coming to cover this famous hiking spot. The locals were used to TV crews, having been filmed once or twice a year. Not knowing much about the TV coverage of hiking, I asked Sophia, who was familiar with the media. TV crews can only drive up to the trailhead, right? To film the hiking scenes, they have to carry heavy equipment. I might try hiking myself on my next day off. When I mentioned my interest in hiking, Sophia looked me up and down and said, Dr. Turner, don't underestimate hiking. Someone as scrawny as you can't handle it. When Sophia said that, I gave a wry smile and left the clinic to start my afternoon house calls. I had become quite accustomed to life in the village, and the peaceful flow of time no longer made me feel inexplicable anxiety. I felt I could now face people in my own way. After finishing an examination at a house at the foot of the mountain, I stepped outside to find it was raining heavily. Wow, this doesn't look like it'll stop anytime soon. I'm glad I brought my rain gear. The mountain weather can change quickly. It was sunny a moment ago, but sudden rain is common here. Downpours are frequent, and I had gotten used to the changing weather over the past 3 months. Walking around in the rain is dangerous, so I decided to head back to the clinic. As I hurried along the familiar path, I noticed it was blocked by a landslide. Ha! Could it be a landslide? If so, I need to go back and contact the police. Just then, I saw someone frantically waving their hand ahead. Please, someone help. Our group got caught in the landslide, and some of my companions are injured. What? How many people are caught? I asked in surprise, and the woman, who seemed to be part of a TV crew, said there were 10 people, including herself. But she was the only one who managed to escape the landslide. Despite the poor visibility due to the rain, I could see one person lying at the bottom of the slope, 2 in the middle, and 6 on the other side of the landslide. I immediately contacted the ambulance, the clinic, and the police station. Then ran towards the other side of the landslide with the female crew member. Upon checking the condition of the people lying there, most had bruises and external injuries. But none appeared to be in life-threatening condition. The problem was the people lying below. They likely had head injuries and were losing body heat in this rain. Rescue was a race against time. Hey, is the landslide here? Tell me the situation. Nick, Sophia, paramedics, and police officers arrived on the scene one after another. I informed Nick and Sophia about the 6 people on the other side and went to rescue the man at the bottom of the slope. The 2 people lying in the middle had multiple fractures in their legs, arms, and ribs, making it difficult for them to move on their own. Hey! These two have severe fractures. They can't move by themselves. We need stretchers. I shouted and continued toward the man further down. This man was still partly buried in the mud, with severe bruises and cuts all over his body. He had multiple external injuries and was bleeding. He was barely conscious, breathing shallowly, and needed urgent medical attention. We need help removing the mud here. And get a stretcher and a set of hemostatic tools. Also, an emergency kit. I called out to the paramedics and the local fire brigade. While trying to stop the bleeding and administer fluids with the tools I had on hand, I kept encouraging the man. Are you okay? Help is on the way. Hang in there. It hurts. I can't take it anymore. That's not true. If I don't make it, give this to my daughter. Inside the plastic bag he handed me, there was a photo of a blue bee taken in these mountains. The blue bee is said to bring good luck to those who see it. It's a rare bee that only lives in pristine mountains, gathering on the autumn Japanese sage, and it's a species rarely seen in the country. I remembered it had recently become popular among young female hikers. He probably took the photo because his daughter asked him to if he saw the blue bee. Give her this, tell her to be happy. He seemed to be asking me to deliver the photo and message to his daughter if something happened to him. But I wasn't going to let that happen. He would survive and give the photo to his daughter himself. You're going to give this photo to your daughter yourself. Don't worry. I'll save you. Really, can you save me? I will. Trust me. Okay, please. Hang in there. Help is almost here. With the help of the local fire brigade and paramedics, we managed to free the man from the mud, but he had an open fracture in his leg. The bleeding was severe. Just then, we received a call that the general hospital in the town, about an hour's drive away, could take him. However, transporting him would take too long, and his condition was too critical to wait. 2 hours round trip to the hospital. That won't do. Nick, can I use the operating room in the back? I asked Nick. Go ahead, but that room isn't equipped for a proper operation. I don't even know if the machines will work properly. They haven't been maintained in a while. It's fine. I've been doing some maintenance just in case. I know how to use everything. Please let me use it. As it turns out, I had discovered an unused operating room in the back of the clinic and spent a considerable amount of time checking the machines and gradually bringing them back to working order. So, that's what Kyle was doing secretly every day. If that's the case, Sophia can assist you. Until last year, Sophia was a surgical nurse at a university hospital in Tokyo. She'll do a great job. All right. Sophia, I'm counting on you. Yes. Nick and the locals will help here. Everyone said they wanted to support you, Dr. Turner, who always cares for them, so they all gathered. The local women's association includes former nurses who once worked at the district's general hospital. Now retired, they volunteer locally while also working in agriculture. If you need anything, just let us know. You can count on us like we're a big ship. The women from the association said with reliable smiles like motherly figures. Thank you so much. Nick, who used to specialize in surgery, skillfully performed sutures, while the firefighters and everyone else took care of the other injured people. Let's get started. Yes. The rest happened quickly. I began the operation on the man with the open leg fracture, working on the fracture site first, then suturing the other injuries. Normally, a procedure that would require 4 to 5 people, including an anesthesiologist, was handled by Sophia and me efficiently, finishing the operation in just over an hour. That was fast. Sophia was amazed at my work. Leaving the post-operative care to Sophia, I returned to Nick and helped with the remaining patients. Kyle, have you already finished the operation? Yes. If we had better equipment and more people, we could have done it faster. But this was the best we could do here. Faster? How short do your operations usually take? Nick was astonished at my suturing speed. By the time the ambulance from the general hospital at the foot of the mountain arrived, all the patients had been treated. The man who had surgery and those with fractures were transported to the general hospital just in case. Those with minor injuries were accommodated in a local inn and would be examined again tomorrow before being transported to town by a minibus. Dr. Turner, your surgery was really amazing. I've never seen such efficient work even at the university hospital. Sophia, who assisted me, explained in detail to Nick everything that happened during the surgery. After hearing her, Nick spoke to me with a serious expression. Finishing that operation in an hour while managing anesthesia and monitoring? You must have several brains. I handled many surgeries in my youth. But I couldn't do that. Even if you were called the best doctor in Japan, I wouldn't be surprised. Who exactly are you, Kyle? Nick's astonishment left me unsure how to respond. Feeling I could trust these two, I shared the story of my demotion from the university hospital. I explained how Harold and Stephen targeted me, falsely accusing me of taking bribes and manipulating experimental drug data. I was forced to take the blame and was transferred to this clinic as a result of this unjust situation. I was the head of surgery. I performed many operations and had a good reputation among patients. People came to me from all over. And I was considered a candidate for the next professor. Stephen, especially, resented me. With the professor selection coming up in a few years, he wanted to eliminate me beforehand. That's why he falsely accused me and got me expelled from the university hospital. What a terrible situation. Nick was deeply shocked by my story. But now I like this clinic. I've realized that a university hospital isn't the only place to practice medicine. As long as I'm motivated, I can treat patients anywhere, under any circumstances. I said confidently, but Nick slowly shook his head. No, Kyle. You're too skilled to be here. This clinic has been a refuge for young doctors who caused trouble at university hospitals. So far, we've only had real troublemakers. They threw tantrums and quit quickly, saying they couldn't work in such a remote place. But you're different. With your knowledge and skills, you shouldn't be stuck here. There are many patients who truly need your expertise. You should return to where your skills are most needed. Nick's words made sense. But I didn't want to return to where those who had framed me were. Sophia watched us with a complex expression. For a moment, a heavy silence filled the examination room. Then someone knocked on the door. When I invited them in, it was the woman from the TV crew. Thank you so much for saving our staff. You all saved our lives. Without you, we don't know what would have happened. The person Dr. Turner operated on is my mentor. Since I joined the TV station as a rookie, he has taken care of me like family. If he hadn't survived, I don't think I could have lived with the guilt of being the only one saved. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. I can't thank you enough. I overheard your conversation earlier. Is there anything we can do to help? Please, let us assist you in any way we can. She bowed deeply. Thank you. I just did what any doctor would, but I'm glad you feel that way. If we need help, I won't hesitate to ask. For now, please rest with the others. Yes, thank you. I was genuinely happy that my actions had saved her and her colleagues. Up until now, no matter how many patients I treated, it was just part of the job, something expected of me. Though the landslide was an accidental occurrence, it felt incredibly fortunate that we could save many people in this place with limited equipment and staff, all working together. As I pondered this, Nick sat in the clinic, quietly sipping tea, deep in thought. Little did I know, Nick was concocting an extraordinary plan. About a month after the landslide incident, Nick told me he wanted to visit his old haunt in Tokyo and asked me to accompany him. He said he hadn't been to Tokyo for a while and needed me to guide him. I took his words at face value and went to Tokyo with Nick. To my surprise, his old haunt turned out to be the very university hospital where I used to work. Without a word, Nick barged into the director's office. There stood Harold and Stephen, with me. It felt like a cold blizzard was raging through the room. What brings you here? How did you manage to find your way from that rural clinic without getting lost? Harold's first words to Nick were filled with sarcasm. Well, I had an excellent guide, Kyle, so I could get here even with my eyes closed. Oh, you caught the dropout who made a huge blunder here and think he's excellent? You've grown senile. I recommend you hurry back to the countryside before you embarrass yourself further. Confused by the sudden exchange of barbs, I watched as Nick took a bold step forward. I'm here today to expose all the wrongdoings you two have been involved in. What? Have you lost your mind? I wondered why you called me here along with your son-in-law, but this is nonsense. Call security. Wait, son-in-law? As I watched the exchange, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place in my mind. Nick, are you Professor Nicholas Sullivan, the former director of this hospital and Harold's father-in-law? What? I never mentioned that. No, you didn't. Recalling my previous disrespectful attitude, my face turned pale. Nick was the former director of this university hospital. What an unmotivated old doctor, I thought. But he was actually a great surgical professor. When I was younger, I had seen him a few times in the corridors, and now I could see the resemblance. The atmosphere around him had changed so much that I hadn't recognized him until now. Unlike his son-in-law Harold, Professor Sullivan, known as Nick, was famous for being a paragon of the medical profession. He was a pioneer who tried to incorporate advanced medical techniques into regional healthcare. However, his ideas were not well received at the time, and he eventually left the university. As we were causing a commotion, Harold reached for the phone to call security. Nick quickly continued. If anyone is getting thrown out by security, it's you two. I've independently investigated the reasons for Kyle's expulsion from this hospital. It turns out that the allegations against him were entirely fabricated. This time, Stephen reacted. That's not true. Kyle's misconduct is real. We have testimonies from the clinical coordinator and the pharmaceutical sales representative. Those testimonies were coerced. The coordinator and the sales rep have testified that Stephen threatened them to go along with the false story. Or else they wouldn't cooperate in future drug trials. Hearing this, Stephen gritted his teeth in frustration. And Harold, you knew about Stephen's misconduct and deliberately helped frame Kyle to cover it up. You have a cozy relationship with the pharmaceutical company, don't you? You were afraid that investigating Stephen would expose your own corruption. Nick now directed his words at Harold. Don't be ridiculous. You've always had an overactive imagination, but it's gotten worse with age. I don't have time for your delusions. Get back to the countryside immediately. No, it's you who will be stepping down. You've been taking large kickbacks from the pharmaceutical company in exchange for bulk orders of the new drug once it's approved. That's bribery. Your threats don't scare me. Trying to pin this on me? And that's not all. The financial reports for endoscopes and other equipment don't match. Where did the difference go? I heard you sent lavish gifts to the board members to recommend Stephen for the next professorship. The source of that money can be traced. Can't it? Realizing he was cornered, Harold suddenly raised his voice. Do you have proof? If these are false accusations, I'll sue you for defamation. Anticipating this response, Nick took the large bag I had been carrying for him. Really? If you want proof, here you go. Nick threw a stack of documents on the table. They included evidence of Stephen's misconduct, call records with the clinical coordinator, bank records of illegal transactions, and video footage of their secret meetings. Additionally, there were copies of contracts with the pharmaceutical company and receipts and payment slips for medical equipment purchases. Hey, Stephen, you said there wouldn't be any evidence. Harold asked, looking panicked. How? How is this possible? What? Why? Stephen stammered, drenched in cold sweat, overwhelmed by the irrefutable evidence piling up before him. All of this was gathered by staff and volunteers who respect Kyle. This shows how much they admire him. And what about you two? Your reputations are terrible. You charge high fees for private rooms and look down on patients in shared rooms. There's no compassion in your treatment of patients. A hospital is supposed to be a place where people suffering from illness are helped and healed. It's a doctor's job to listen to patients, identify problems from minor symptoms, and treat them. What you wanted to do at this hospital was just make money, wasn't it? And you managed to be the director and head of surgery with such attitudes? I'm utterly disgusted. Was this what you wanted to do so badly that you had to drive me out? Nick let out a deep sigh and continued with a slightly sad expression. Do you not realize how much this hospital's reputation has fallen? Doctors should have a spirit of compassion and a desire to save people. Focusing only on personal gain is unacceptable. Have you forgotten such a basic principle? It's disgraceful. I am the current director. I don't need a lecture from you. Harold shouted back. You still don't understand. Very well, you will step down from this hospital. Ha! You think you can just do that? Oh, I can. Just like how you removed me 10 years ago. You falsely accused me of misconduct and had the board vote on a no-confidence motion against me. So, I used the same method. I reported your misconduct to the board, and they've already approved it. What will you do now? What? Harold was stunned. Additionally, the board demands that Harold step down as director and Stephen be expelled. If you resist, they will formally report the misconduct to the police. They are also prepared to release the evidence to the media. We are recording everything in this room right now. So, what will you do? Faced with the threat of their misdeeds being exposed to the media, the two had no choice but to admit their guilt. However, Stephen, still not satisfied, glared at me with hatred. Stephen, I know you dislike me. But why did you become a doctor? To save patients? Or just to bring me down? If it's the latter, did you enjoy framing me? I actually enjoyed my time in that village. The beautiful scenery, fresh air, kind residents, and gentle patients. Everyone cooperated and lived earnestly. Even after thousands of surgeries at the university hospital, I never felt this fulfilled. As a doctor, I realized that the patients' smiles and their words of thanks are more valuable than money. I hope you find something more important than money or status one day. Hearing my words, Stephen's shoulders slumped. Ha ha! What have I been doing all this time? I'm just a clown dancing in a castle of sand. Turning to Nick, Stephen began to speak earnestly. Grandfather, I've admired you since I was a child. You were a great doctor that everyone looked up to, and I wanted to be like you. But when I became a doctor, that image changed. You were indifferent to money, pursuing the medical care you wanted without regard for hospital management. It was my father's efforts that brought the hospital back from financial trouble. He taught me that hospital management isn't just about ideals. But deep down, I still admired you. Over time, I began to resent Kyle, who shared your values. And now, look at me. I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. Muttering to himself, Stephen said nothing more and left the director's office with his head down. Nick watched Stephen's retreating figure and let out a deep sigh. That boy is lost between two conflicting ideals. He needs time to reflect and find himself. He said this with a sad smile. After that, Nick took me to a large conference room. Inside were the board members, including professors and executives. There, Nick proved my innocence, and it was decided that I would return to the university hospital. Nick replaced Harold as the hospital director, reinstated by the board. The doctors who had supported Stephen and were involved in the misconduct were also removed by the board's decision. Harold, after being dismissed, was also expelled from the university hospital. Nick then granted me the authority of acting director and said he would return to the rural clinic soon. Nick, that's not fair. I also want to return to that clinic. Oh, you like the countryside, Kyle? Then how about we start a large-scale regional healthcare project here? Really? If that's the case, I'd love to be part of it. We decided to implement a large-scale visiting medical system in rural healthcare deserts. It became a major project involving local governments. We used digital technology to operate mobile clinics in remote areas, providing regular checkups and consultations. We also converted the playground of an abandoned school into a helipad for emergency medical helicopter dispatch. Now, I can greet everyone in the village easily through video calls from the city. I stay in regular contact with Sophia from the clinic. Dr. Turner, when are you coming back next? I think I can come this weekend. Great. Irene said she'll give us a lot of delicious mountain vegetables. Let's have a tempura party. Sounds good. Now, I regularly travel back and forth between Tokyo and the rural clinic. One day, Sophia and I hiked up the mountain and saw a swarm of the elusive bluebees on the Japanese sage. Wow! Look, Dr. Turner. Blue bees. They're so cute. You're right. They're smaller and more beautiful than in the pictures. Sophia, unusually excited, looked incredibly cute. Seeing the elusive blue bee, maybe happiness will come our way too? When I said that, Sophia blushed and smiled. I'm already very happy just having you here, Dr. Turner. That makes me happy too. Yes, indeed, this is happiness. We looked at each other and laughed. At that moment, I felt truly happy. On that rainy day, the TV crew we rescued from the landslide created a documentary titled The Miracle of the Highland Clinic based on their accident. They featured me as a doctor who helped cleanse the hospital and contributed to revitalizing regional healthcare. Thanks to this, I gained a reputation as an excellent doctor, and the university hospital's management improved significantly. Revitalizing regional healthcare requires money, but fortunately, we avoided going into the red. I am working hard, juggling roles at both the university hospital in Tokyo and in regional healthcare. Interestingly, I feel less stressed now than when I was only working at the university hospital. I think it's because the countryside air suits me and the interactions with the villagers soothe my heart. People seek and aim for different things, whether it be status, fame, or wealth. But I want to interact with many people and help them. As a doctor, saving lives is a given, but being thanked by those I've helped genuinely makes me happy and motivates me. That's why I want to openly express my thoughts in gratitude. Feelings of gratitude should be expressed without hesitation, otherwise, they won't be conveyed to the other person. I aim to provide equal healthcare, without distinguishing between rural and urban areas, and I will continue to work hard toward that future.